Hey everyone, welcome back to the Occasional Podcast. That's the name now. I'm changing it. Boom. I have the
Well, I
power.
can't change it.
I
You
can. It's
unilaterally?
easy.
This
That's
is a
definitely-
triumvirate, not a
Triumvirate.
dictatorship.
Yeah, but I do everything.
Well, just because cops are the people sustaining the power of the powerful doesn't mean that they are the ones that hold all the power, right? So you just what? You do everything. We still have a say, right? Andrew, back me up here.
The
No, I didn't
Occasional
call you.
Podcast is a real podcast by Brian Hunter. It is
Yeah.
a podcast about audio-centric exploration of high-fidelity listening.
I don't know if that's backing me up or not. It felt I'm very confused now.
Literally, what was even said?
To answer your question, yes.
I
didn't call you a cop. Keith.
I love
Sorry.
one-word answers.
They are useful in
It
that
gives
they
me the
provide
illusion of a
just the
simple
right-
life.
Yes. Anytime you're ever confronted with a question that you really don't want to answer, just say yes or no. Because then you have to ask a follow-up question, right? You have to clarify. Most questions that could get you in trouble have to have clarification. So if you never provide clarification, you can never be in the wrong. You just keep saying yes or no. That's
That's
it.
not the best strategy. The
Just
best
the
strategy.
coin flip answer approach.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
don't do that. That will
And
get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And anytime someone asks for a very specific clarification to try to catch you into a yes or no answer, you provide whatever would be a lie, but not not an incriminating lie, but a lie to reality. So if someone says something like, "Are you such and such?" You say no, and they go like, "So you're not such and such," and then you say yes.
No, that will definitely get you in trouble. If you're in a
No.
position where you're going to get in trouble by people asking you that stuff, that I
No.
don't think your advice is good. Sorry to say it.
Yes.
This is really
I think the
stupid.
best-
This is really
the
stupid.
best solution. The best solution has to be like you hold on to whatever thing that you know you're right about, whatever thing that is closest to whatever is being asked of you, and you pretend you misunderstood the question. And you defend yourself very well, like in a truthful manner. You pretend you misunderstand, and you don't let the other person ask any subsequent questions. You're just defending yourself on a thing that you know you're right. And they're like, you're talking about different things, but think about it. People have conversations with each other where they talk about different things throughout the whole conversation and never reach an agreement. They do that all over the time, and
Yeah.
everybody's all right. So you just
It's called the
do that
middle
on
third
purpose.
of this podcast every week.
Every
Where
month.
Andrew and Colonel
Is
yell
what
at
every
about
month.
something, but not the same thing.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, and everything is all right. So just do it on purpose. Somebody asks you,
He does.
who ate the last cookie or whatever is gonna get you on thing, and he's like, I definitely had to have that milk.
No one can have my cookies. I got an Oreo cheesecake, and no one can take it.
Keith is just flexing at this
You can't
point.
reach.
He-
Yes,
he's
I
already
am.
enough.
I am flexing. I worked out today.
He's
A lot of
double
dairy.
flexing.
Got shitty
No, I don't
dumbbells, and my arms feel stupid.
They feel noodly. It's not stupid. It's noodly. There's proper terms here. Come on, get on with
Dude,
it.
the first time I worked out, my legs and arms were so fucking sore for like 3 days, to the point where like I was at the escape room like 3 days later, and we're standing in the parking lot talking for like hours afterwards. And every time I tried to straighten my arms again, it was like physical effort to do so. And if I unstraightened them again, then like a few minutes later, they'd be hard to straighten again. And I'm like, wow, that really hit me hard and all that. But I guess I must have done like a good job or something. Cause like I wasn't like in pain that day that I worked out.
Mhm.
It was just like the afterwards. I'm like, that must mean I did a good job. But
Yeah,
it's never
it's the
happened
buildup.
again. And now I'm like, no, wait.
No,
am
that's
I...
correct. Because the thing is, that's the buildup of lactic acid that is generated by you being out of shape and exercising.
Is
but
it?
Once
It never happened
Yeah.
again. Makes me worry that I'm not doing a good enough job anymore.
you probably won't be able to push yourself hard enough to, unless you're really in shape. You probably will never be able to
Exercise
go
seems
back to that
hard.
soreness thing. Like I personally, in my experience, never felt like that, even at peak shape of like really pushing yourself and then being like, oh, this hurts everything.
what I'm noticing is that the cross point between all the different exercises I try to do is my shoulders, and so those give out first. And you're like, shit, it's hard to target the specific parts of your body because the shoulders suck. And I just need, but that's, I think it's all just like I need to just keep going until everything's less embarrassing, and then I can actually do a good job eventually.
It's not embarrassing to be sore after exercising. It's embarrassing to be sore after you clean up your room or something like that.
It's embarrassing when
That's
you're
what
breathing
happens-
heavy because you walked upstairs.
Yeah, that's what happened to me before I started exercising. I was like, oh, today I'm gonna have to like vacuum my computer case. Guess what? I'm gonna feel sore for the rest of the week. And sure enough, I did. It's because crouching and picking up things that are more than 1 pound.
Yeah,
It's heavy work.
it's
And Andrew wouldn't
we've got-
know this because he walks his dog. So
I'm just
That's
I'm
exercise.
enjoying our little furry community in the Discord that just encourages each other all the time, basically. And
little, he says. In air
I mean,
quotes.
growing. We do have a commission that they're trying to put together where we get everybody's characters in one picture, or at least everyone that's willing to like put money up, because I'm not paying for individual characters for like dozens of people. But it's a fun idea for a community thing to be like everyone can pitch into this big thing, and then one poor artist just has a career for a month or two where they just draw one thing forever. But it's a fun way to get everyone together. But yeah, like people keep posting their artwork, and that encourages other people to draw, and then like suddenly I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to draw every day for 30 days or something, which it's easier said than done because I have entire days that just fucking vanish on me. I'm like, whoops. So I keep counting from 1, and I just say the next day based on whatever the previous day was that I actually did it, because I keep missing days because it's too hard to make time all the time, especially since like I'd be like people talk about it, like, oh yeah, you just draw for like a half an hour or an hour every day or something, but like whenever I try to draw, it's like 3 hours or more. Like it's a chunk of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then fucking we've had some furry converts where people have ended up getting personas and stuff like that, partly just because they want to be included, and also because it's like a fun community, and they're just kind of like realizing what this thing is, and like realizing that they want a character and so on. So like Nox, one of my Discord moderators, made a bear character, but he also like based it on like real photos and so on, and so he's showing these like pictures of him being fucking jacked, and so now people are talking about working out and drawing, and that's kind of the hole that I've been going down. And there was like something about the timing that lined up where it was like he's like just enough older than me that it almost lines up with the amount of time that he's been working out also, and so it's like I could look like that by that age. Is like the mental like possibility that crystallizes, and it's like I'm like fuck. It's like I need to.
I'm
I
seeing
should just
time
do
for the
that.
first time.
Why don't I just do that? I'm a fucking YouTuber. I got bullshit flexibility in my life where I can like try to do that stuff. But
It's more of the consistency that's hard.
yeah,
Like
and there's a lot of like
that's
social anxiety shit about the idea of actually going to a gym.
Mm-hmm.
that just sounds.
That's why I got-
again. That's just like that's commitment, and I don't feel like I can commit to something
Yeah,
enough to make the money I pay for it valuable enough. Like if I pay for a gym membership, I want to be there like twice a week, maybe like 4 times a week, because it's
yeah,
kind
like
of
every other
expensive.
day.
Like, yeah, but I don't have time to do it every other day. Like, I do have to.
I
do
just
stuff.
found
Like,
discarded dumbbells from a family member basically, and I'm like, haha, here we go. But then I'm
That's-
almost
yeah,
immediately
that's
with the
the best way.
workouts. Almost immediately with the workouts, you're like, fuck, you need a bench, don't you? Like there's a lot of
Yeah, you do.
mobility problems that you have if you don't have a bench specifically. There's like not really replacements for it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But right
you
now,
can use so to do a good chunk of them, obviously you can't do any stuff that requires you to lay on your back, but if you don't need to lay on your back, usually kitchen chairs are good enough. Like strong wooden back chair, kitchen
you
chairs.
know,
You can
our
also
house,
get yourself
our house is
hurt if you don't
annoying.
know
We've
which
got
way.
stools.
Oh.
We got bar stools
well-
for the kitchen bar.
Alternatively, a ladder is also good.
I've also got an
Um,
ottoman that I
is-
put that I hide my VR in when it's not hooked up. But that's just
Oh,
it's
that's a
not
good one,
it's
too.
not no, it's just not long enough. It's not big enough.
Oh,
It's like
damn.
the size of like a filing cabinet box, like that kind of thing. Filing box cardboard thing. It's like
Yeah, I
that's
mean
not a good
that's
shape. It's not long
yeah, and
enough.
in that case, well, you
Because
have your
you
you're
need
not
like
in an
your,
apartment,
as far as I can
so
tell, you need like your butt and your shoulders to both be on the thing because you need to be able to like arch it a little bit to like to be able to like target your
yeah.
chest or something. And it's like, fuck. I just need another piece of
You
furniture in the no room I have.
do you have? I mean, do you have space in your garage?
Not really. It's completely filled with the owner's hobbyist stuff. An actual nightmare in there.
Do you have like?
I have to like crawl through it all every time I get to my fridge like 3 times a day.
Oh, that's not ideal, man.
Every time I move into one of these places, I always have the garage fridge, which is actually nice. It's
I really
annoying because I have
wish
to go put
like
shoes on, but it's good in that everyone else is trying to figure out how to make their shit fit in the house fridge, and I'm like, haha, I have like several packs of drinks in here because fuck it.
The least efficient thing to store in a fridge.
I get
The
that
thing
it's
about
like yeah,
Drinks.
that's
Usually,
frustrating.
about-
it's usually lemon black tea and cock and bull ginger beer.
Mm. The thing about exercise and consistency is it needs to be fun. Like you need to find
It's not.
you need to find the dopamine hit. When you find the dopamine hit to your exercise the first time, you like hang on to it as much as you can because that's well, first off, that's really good for your mental health because
Yeah,
exercise
I
is good
always
for your
hear
mental
about the
health.
fucking like the high people get or whatever, and I'm like, sure would love to feel that
What?
idea ever, because boy, do I never
I
feel
don't-
good about any kind of exercise.
I don't know about lifting though. If how that would work. I've never done anything like that. 'Cause it
Supposedly,
feels
the hyena in my Twitter DMs always talks about that shit when he lifts, about how great it makes him feel. I'm like, what? How? What does that mean?
that's
I don't
that's like a
understand.
self that's like a self taught thing. Like you beat that into yourself. It is
No.
not
I mean,
naturally
I think you just
forming.
do it
You
for
do
long
not.
enough that it starts feeling good, essentially.
Yeah, you're like you're giving yourself a boost of adrenaline for like succeeding and keeping up with something, or like oh look at the
No.
progress I've made. Look at
That's
me.
not what it is though.
Uh,
Like at least not in my
I
experience.
I think
The boost comes
I think
from
it's an actual physical sensation.
yeah. It's like the body
physical
you're pushing
sensation.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you're pushing the body so much that you're creating all sorts of uh I don't know if hormones is the correct term, but you're creating all sorts of reactions in your body as you're exercising, and it's effort, it's a lot, it's a work, right? You're exercising and
I
you're
can't.
tiring
I don't.
yourself, but at the same time you're creating all these sorts of things going on in your body, and if you feel pleasure from that, you need to hang on to that because it's worthwhile, and also as I said, you're gonna always feel that one way or another, but you can just focus on that more to feel it more, I suppose. And that
I
like
don't know.
that's why cycling by myself for I did that from the age of 14 to 17 or 18, and it's like I practiced by myself on average 2 or 3 hours a day for 5 days a week, and just going around riding a bicycle, and it's super boring. It's so boring because you're seeing the same roads over and over again, and you're by yourself. You're just riding around at 30 or 40 kilometers an hour. It's not thrilling or anything. It's just effort. But the effort gives, at least I could find the rush in that, and be like, yeah. And it's not even about just, I mean, the it's cool to be able to set limits or set goals for yourself and be like, I could do this before. Let's see if I can match it or if I can surpass it, and that's cool as well. But like even just going out and stretching my legs and being active, that's pleasurable. And yeah, that's why I don't know if lifting is the same kind of thing, because I see a lot of people who focus on bodybuilding focus on the feel the burn sort of thing. So there's more of a lactic acid buildup associated with that sort of exercise. But I'm sure you can like mix up all sorts of other things like uh, full body exercises before and after to get you pumping. I don't know. I'm not the person to ask about that.
I don't know anything about anything.
Make sure you don't hurt
And-
yourself though, because it is easy to, especially when
Yeah.
you're starting out.
I don't know if I trust that because I dedicated that much time playing Overwatch and I've never felt physical satisfaction from doing that. So I'm pretty confident that's a load of shit. That's definitely
can-
placebo stuff.
I can agree with Overwatch. Well, actually, I can't agree with. It's fun. Overwatch is
You
fun.
wanna-
I like.
It's a good
If we want
game.
to take an even further step back, I've played video games about that consistently for an even longer amount of time and still have never felt physical pleasure. So
I don't think you've ever felt pleasure.
definitely. That's definitely not true. I watched Bleach
it One
die.
Piece?
I've
Oh.
never been happier.
I tried to
in
take
my
it to a
life.
positive space,
Wait.
but no, of course not.
No.
Bleach is a
Full spike.
character.
Bleach
No,
is the
Bleach
anime.
is-
Oh,
Bleach
you
is
watched the anime
manga.
die, right? Oh, that makes it even.
Well,
weaker
I
than
did
thought.
watch the anime die. That almost gave me pleasure, but then the manga was still going, so he was still making money. Not enough.
Oh,
I
crap.
had to see it end. So watching it finally tank, fall to the ground, gasp its last breath, and I sat there in its own home country, holding the issue that it died in my arms,
Oh,
sitting in
so-
Osaka.
I'm so
feeding a
confused by
stray
the
cat.
hatred because to this day I've only ever watched the good part of Bleach,
the first season.
Fuck off. So awful.
and I just never.
That's
I
what
never
Joe
went beyond
did to
that point.
me.
I literally just watched
literally-
the monster. I watched the Monster of the Week episodes that are the first story arc, and then I watched like the Save Rukia arc where they go to the Spirit Society or whatever, the Soul Society, and he fights red-haired chainsaw whip blade man, kunai with blade or kunai with chain man, and then Bleach ends when they save Rukia. Just like how,
That is-
like how Death Note ends at the end of the 75% mark, and then that last 25% never happened. Except in Bleach's case,
Yeah.
it's the last like 90% never happened or something. I don't know how long
Yeah,
it went on
yeah.
for.
The last 90%.
There are so many infinitely
uh,
long shows that where if you watch like 2 seasons and stop, you're actually just better off. In the anime
People say
world.
that about
Yeah.
Code Geass, and I cannot understand that. I thought
It's
the
kind of
second
like do
season
you
of
really
Code-
need to keep watching Dragon Ball Z when it's like they keep bringing back they're just another guy with 3 forms over and over again? Like, do you really need to keep going, or can you stop at like Frieza and be like, yeah, it's fine?
the moment they got into the Z, it should be.
You can
it's the
especially
Z
stop
that-
after Cell and not bother with Boo when it's the same thing again, except without the androids, so it's boring. Because there was like
mean,
drama with like,
Android-
oh man, Krillin likes 18, and oh, what these characters are developed into different personalities, always getting them. Then Boo is like, what if there was another tournament arc with another 3-formed sociopath? And it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I think they're
It's
still
not-
doing
it's
that
not
to this
great,
day.
but,
With Super. Is Super over or
uh,
still happening? I don't know. I never watched any of it.
Super's different. Super is
Isn't it also a tournament?
So no, that was the series conclusion. Well, I guess it's still I don't know if the anime is coming back, but the anime's conclusion was doing a big like a literal universe tournament arc. So like every reality in the Dragon Ball universe had a tournament arc, which is just so much. But definitely
lot.
like someone going, okay, that's it, I'm done. Fuck you, going home now. Like this.
That sounds exhausting.
I heard
It
Goku
was silly.
endangered the entire universe for fun, basically.
Yeah, that was the tournament arc. Yeah, he literally was like, we're gonna enter our universe into this fighting tournament, and I'm gonna win because if we lose, the universe just gets erased. That's just
Oh wait,
the rules of the game.
Dragon Ball
So that you were
Super's
responsible
old
for murdering
now.
a bunch of other universes.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Super. It's not. I wouldn't say it's old, but it's.
I'm just processing that. Like, I remember hearing about Dragon Ball Super on a podcast when I was sitting in my car in the parking lot at my old job, and I'm like, "Hang on a minute, wait, that was whoa." But you know that thing where you like wow, the new thing came out, and you're like, maybe I'll get to it one day, and then suddenly you blink and it's been 6 years, and you're like,
Yeah, no.
like-
Dragon Ball Super came out in 2015.
like the DLC to Dishonored 2, which is like 5 years old now, and I'm like, oh fuck.
I am still playing Dishonored 2, so you know.
There's always like the
And they
inertia
don't-
of like, I gotta relearn how to play the game so I can play the DLC. And like, do I need to replay the whole game to then be like, I know what's happening in the story and so on? Because I don't. I don't remember.
I'm thinking
always
the
frustrating.
second Dishonored is not as good as the first one. I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's good, but I think both from a storytelling perspective and from a level design perspective, the first one was better.
Maybe. I don't remember enough to compare. All I know is I liked Prey way more.
Oh, Prey's amazing.
And I do have a bias in favor of sci-fi, but also it also has body horror and other fucked up things going on, and there's a lot that I like, but it's also like, oh my god, I know it's like a thing. It's like fucking it's like that music genre some people hate. That
Which one?
that
Gotta be a little bit more specific here.
Caravan Palace. Electro Swing. It's like the video game equivalent of Electro Swing, the fucking like retro futurist stuff. Like it's like a mix. It's the mixture of futuristic technology crossed with the crazy past stuff. But I love that aesthetic so much.
It's great.
It's in Prey in some form again, in like a BioShock but not kind of way. It reminds me of that one game that I feel like is never coming out because I haven't heard about it forever, but I think it's like in the Russian exclusion zone and like there's like aliens and it's got that retrofuturist thing going on with it.
The Russian exclusion zone?
I don't know.
You mean the Ukrainian exclusion zone?
I don't know.
Of Chernobyl or something else?
I don't know. I'm mashing words together that sound correct.
They kind of.
Hang on, I'm scrolling through my Steam wish list because it's probably on Steam, not System Shock. Totally find it. Not Backbone. I don't know. I'm just naming the things that show up on my screen now.
You should play Backbone.
There's a lot of games I should play. I'm constantly tempted to make Andrew play Birth Me Code with me.
I have never heard of this.
What did you just say?
The name of that game.
Oh.
Remember that Animal Masks, horrifying Freddy Fazbear Animal Masks looking game that's supposed to be like 999? You've seen it before. It's just got a horrifying name. Like just a really horrifying name. I didn't know that was what it was called. That's awful. Yeah, no, I only remembered it while I was reading it out to you when I was looking at it. Fuck, it's not on my wish list on... that might be bad. If it's not on my wish list anymore on Steam, that maybe its page is gone. I feel like I added it before.
Maybe that's why it's not coming out.
BTMB2 is in here. Fuck, I don't know. It's really hard to think of a game when you just can describe it. Unless you have a stream audience right now that could be like, oh, I know. But it was it was one of those like maybe immersive sim-ish, vaguely BioShocky feeling games that was announced like maybe 2 years ago. And it was vaguely Slavic, I feel like a Stalker style game that isn't Stalker, which is also coming back.
Hopefully.
They tried to do NFTs and then they had to apologize for it. Anyway, this is really derailed, but yeah, I like those things. They're fun. Podcast over. Smoke bomb. I like that. I just remember that I had a question open the whole time, but we got on workouts somehow.
Well, we were talking about cheesecake. You are eating.
We really do latch on to anything, don't we?
That's true. Yeah, we're like barnacles. That should be our.
Brandon Gage asks. I'll ask the bonus question first because why are you all so handsome? Aw. Okay, real question. Do any of you have any experience / stories regarding card games such as MTG, Hearthstone, Pokemon, etc.? They just want us to talk about TCGs. I have like exactly one.
Can I go first though?
No, fuck you. My first booster pack of Pokemon I ever got at a 7-Eleven had a Zapdos in it, but I didn't understand how valuable a Zapdos was, so I traded it for my friend's Gyarados because it was a cooler Pokemon. But little did I know, the one existing, because this is the beginning of all of Pokemon when it was new in the US, basically the first deck you could buy just had Gyarados in it every time. So it was an incredibly common card, even if it is obviously cooler than almost everything in Gen 1. It was a huge trade down, and that person wronged me, and I've never forgiven them. Anyway, I don't
Yeah.
play TCGs. The gameplay of Magic, I find the gameplay of Magic and Hearthstone fun. I don't really like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, but I don't want to make a deck, and I especially don't want to pay for making a deck. So I pretty much just like playing I like playing card games. That's it.
You say you don't play these games, but it sounds to me like you played these games. You bought a
Just play
booster
'em now.
card?
So the first time I ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh, it was on a Game Gear. I had the Game Gear like get TV signals thing that you could plug into your Game Gear and watch TV on the tiny Game Gear screen with its 6 batteries and shit. It's not an efficient way of getting TV.
God.
But I was sitting in a parking lot, and I found Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'd never seen it before, and it was the Labyrinth episode in Spanish. So I couldn't really tell what was happening, but the two bald guys were summoning their monsters, and it was like, I think it was Yugi and Joey versus them, and they were summoning their cards in the labyrinth, and I'm like, that's really cool. I want to play that game. So when I actually did get Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid, I was disappointed that's just a regular card game and not on a labyrinth grid. So I got a big old poster board, and I drew a labyrinth that was all like card shaped tiles. And the rule was that you could move by the number of spaces you could move was based on the number of stars on your card, which is probably not balanced, but that was me making up a game when I'm like 11. I also had the Yu-Gi-Oh dice game on my Game Boy, which is that you would summon monsters, and when you summoned them, the dice unfolded into like a grid shaped like platform. And when one of your two platforms met, then they started fighting in the middle. Like you were creating a grid, like it's of like walkable space for like a Fire Emblem style tactical game. I liked everything about Yu-Gi-Oh except the actual version of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're supposed to play with the real cards. Like every other version was better. But no, my actual time like playing any card game is really short lived. I collected a lot of Pokemon cards when I was younger, but I just got a bunch of them. And like you have your one binder, that's your whatever cards, and your other binder, that's all of your like holo foils. And I had so many fucking dittos that the actual like slot they all go into my folder split.
Oh,
Like it burst because of all the dittos inside, because there was too many dittos, and I was trying to put.
Oh my god!
When I had dupes, I'd put them in the same slot. So certain ones were kind of like flexing out, and the dittos just physically ruptured my binder.
I think there was definitely a point you passed where you didn't need to keep those dittos anymore.
Yeah. I don't have any of those cards anymore because it's Pokemon cards. I don't care. Now all the fucking furries I know are obsessed with Pokemon cards. Let's just to know Enro right now is just to be hit with a deluge of incredibly shiny, very busy looking art of Pokemon cards, because I guess a new launch just happened or something, and I don't really like the art that much. It's way too busy and way too hard to like parse at a glance. I kind of liked how really stupid Pokemon Gen 1 was. Like, it was a mix of like bad 3D and like lopsided like fucking Pikachu popsicle art. But it was really clean.
Yeah.
And nowadays they're
like,
aggressively designed. It's too much.
yeah, there's like a little bit of charm with the Gen 1 TCG cards. But yeah. No,
Yeah. All right.
I mean,
Now you can go first, Colonel.
there you
now
go.
I can. Well, the reason why I wanted to go first is so I could leverage you guys both of your stories, because my relationship with trading card games is very shaped by the socio-economical realities of Portugal in the 90s. Because spending $25 or however much it was for a pack of cards, it probably wasn't that much. But like even the notion of spending money in cards, it was like, oh, so I go for the whole month without an allowance so I can have these cards, and I don't even know what they are. That's insane. And because my allowance was well, it was small. And so my only experience playing cards is, well, what I assume many people also have that experience, is just some friend had a pack of cards or a deck that they could like split in half, knowing more or less what would work, and teach me the game of Magic the Gathering. I played it a few times. I think I played other things as well, with different sized cards. I recall there were smaller cards somehow. I don't know what they were, but they all played similarly, because you had to like terrains, and then you had the whole power attacks and or attack power and defense power and all that sort of stuff. And I was never good at it, but it was still like a fun time to spend some time, but never from a collector's perspective, because that's just like, I'm a kid, I don't have money. And my parents are just like, yeah, I don't have money either, shut up. So I like, yeah, that's my experience with cards. So Andrew, you go first now.
I played Pokemon and Magic. I played Pokemon when I was younger. So like Gen 1 to Gen 2 was it, but not when I say played, I didn't even mean like a lot. It was mostly, I would say I had at most 2 decks um worth of cards, and
Mm.
they weren't good. Like I wasn't winning a lot of matches. Um but that was just because it wasn't finding, because the thing with trading card games, especially back then, was trying to find people to play it with. Otherwise, you are just collecting cards and being excited about having a collection. But
Mhm.
if you're not around people that actually want to play the game, it basically is pointless. And so like I only had one person that played the game, and they couldn't afford cards a lot. So I basically just got I had enough so that we had 2 decks that we could play, because it was like the only person that would play the game with me. Um, and so yeah, once I finished, that's I basically was like, well, this is pointless. Like we just both have 2 decks made of really shitty cards. Like this only will last for so long before it's not fun. Um, as for Magic, I learned Magic in my like 20s. Like I played that at my first job. Um, and I learned from a guy uh, who upon beating me in my first game of Magic, he completely destroyed me while showing me how to play the game. Uh, After doing so, he promptly got up, walked outside, and vomited into the bush violently. Um, he
As a
was
show of disdain, I assume.
he was incredibly drunk, but it was very
Formative
humbling
experience.
to both lose at a trading card game you've never played before, lose terribly, and also the person who beats you goes outside and vomits. Like that is a really good combination of things to really set into you an inspiration. Um, I spent a lot of time with Magic. I actually played a lot. I collected a lot of cards. The deck I built, um, the deck I built to beat that guy who vomited, um, it actually was like 3 or 4 cards off of the deck that won a major Magic tournament that year. I was doing a white halfling deck, um, and it was a fucking banger. Like it was a good deck. It was really hard to keep me down because I would keep getting life back. So it was just this constant, basically dead end stall to try to kill me. The only option was to like try to basically wipe me out in one go. Was the counter. But yeah, I think I played Magic for like a couple of years, like probably like 2 or 3 years, and then same thing though. Like at some point, I ran out of people to play with, so I just stopped playing. Where I was like, okay, well, I don't have anyone to play with. I'm done. Which is like, I don't know. It seems like that's the biggest hurdle of trading card games. Again,
Probably
like
why people
anything,
play
you have to
digitally
find
now.
it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's yeah. Like Pokemon's digital, Magic's digital. Like all the good trading card games are digital now, so there's no reason for you to go out. Have to go to a local card shop, interact with a bunch of people that you probably aren't going to very get along with in the long term, but are probably going to be at least someone you can play a game with. Uh, like it's a lot of effort, but I guess if you like it, um, that's
Now
my
that
experience.
now that I recall, I do recall playing or having playing a little of Tazos. I don't remember how if they are
I don't know what
called
that is.
differently, but basically Lay's and the other associated chips brands. Let's see, Lay's. Who owns Lay's? Lay's is owned by PepsiCo, and yeah, they have a bunch of chips, and they in the 90s they used to have something like these little like pog like discs of plastic or whatever they were inside of the chips, the bags, and you just buy chips as you would, which I wouldn't because of money, but you just buy chips and you get Tazos, and all the kids would collect them and have like different versions, and every like few months there would be new ones, and so it was all the rage. But it was like, it wasn't, you wouldn't buy packs, you would just buy chips instead, and they were supposed to be played like that. You would stack them, you stack them all in a pile, and then you just smack them against each other, and the ones that would land like turned over would be yours, something like that. So it was like you could play for fun, but you also could play for.
It's just the rules of Pog, right?
I was gonna say
it's like
this
Pog,
is
yeah.
Pogs, right?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah, they're
branded
just
differently.
Pogs.
Which is like Jacks, but further commodified. Collectibles Jacks.
Maybe I'm looking it up on Wikipedia trying to figure out if it's with a Z or with an S. But I don't know. It was weird because chips are packed and made in different countries, so all of it came directly from Portugal and in Portuguese as well. So it probably is like Pogs, yeah. Oh yeah, but it was associated with Looney Tunes. That's right. So according to Wikipedia, Tazo started out with a set of 100 discs featuring the images of Looney Tunes characters and 124 Tiny Toons Tazos in 1994. This goes to show how little I actually had. I had a collection of 13 that I treasured very much. And later on, they had different versions, but they're still going. In 2020, there's a Pac-Man version of Tazos. Holy crap!
The Forever game.
Yeah, I've never seen this. Never seen this before.
Mm. Yeah, it's like cards, but lamer and cheaper, and smelling more of fried food stuff.
And smelling more of fried food. I'm only hearing upsides.
You got any more questions?
Only hearing upsides.
Mm.
All right, this is a big one.
Fair.
Preet asks, so Star Citizen is fast approaching 10 years of being a Kickstarter project. Right now it is in alpha state. To put it in context, Dark Souls for PC released in August 2012. A month later, Star Citizen hit its US $2 million target and it was given a green light. Today we have had Dark Souls 2, 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, and Star Citizen is still in alpha state. What do you think of this project? Do you think this Kickstarter has had an effect on Kickstarter system for games? What lesson do you think should be learned from this Kickstarter? Can you see this game being finished? And how do you see this Kickstarter ending? Talk about Star Citizen, basically.
The lesson that we can learn from this is that players will eat up any bullshit that you throw at them. If you promise them the universe, they will buy it. And they'll just keep doing that for the foreseeable future. It happened with No Man's Skies. It happened with
NFTs.
It happened with NFTs.
You just hype up this future promise of why you should buy into this thing and why it's totally hype and going to change your life or whatever, and you just keep hyping that up as long as as possible while never necessarily delivering, just kind of always building up the future indefinitely, and then you profit off of that basically. Like it's a whole model. I mean, the worst thing that Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky ever did was come out. If they could just keep fucking laying down those train tracks in front of them and just keep it going and never actually release, like that's ideal. Just keep collecting money and never launching.
Do you think Cyberpunk's hype was similar to No Man's Skies?
Yeah,
I didn't follow it very closely.
It's just what happens every year. There's the ridiculously hyped game that everyone freaks out over, and then they get really, like, to the point where they become fanboys. They get really mad at you if you question whether or not it's going to be good, even though it's not out and no one's played it, but they decide to make it their personality and everything. It's the cycle. Gamers just like this all the time, and Marvel fanboys and so on. Like it's fucking exhausting. It's just a really bad approach to these things.
There's a difference between the kind of hype that like Starfield is gonna generate, and like I think Cyberpunk generated, in the hype that a no-name team like I actually don't know the name of the studio, but from No Man's Skies, the hype that that particular game generated was more based around, ooh, look at all the possibilities. The concept of possibility when it comes to hype is
that Star
crucial
Citizen
in
and No
understanding.
Man's Sky and Cyberpunk are all about the endless, crazy, incredibly expansive infinity game that's in your head that you think is going to happen, and then it actually comes out, and you're like, well, you see, there's a bunch of you land on a bunch of blobs that are slightly different in how blobby they are, and then you collect the same 4 resources, and then you fly to another blob. You kind of do that for about 200 hours, and then it ends, I guess. Supposedly the story eventually has a structure and it ends or something. But like the nebulous whateveritude where everything is unexplored and unique, but in a way that's equally uninteresting and bland nature of No Man's Sky. And then like Cyberpunk was like an incredibly basic shooter RPG with almost nothing impressive going on in any element of what it had, but and the lead up to it coming out, it was going to like revolutionize video games, and it was going to be an incredible step forward and accomplish all these things that have never happened before. Like it just happens all the time, over and over again.
Who was claiming that?
That was the hype. That was the hype that it's going to be this
yeah.
incredible fucking RPG supposedly, and it's like, in what way?
When I say that the gamers will eat anything, I don't mean this as an attack on any gamer that might be listening right now, including you too, by the way.
I do. Fuck you, specifically that guy, Steve.
No, Steve. Actually, I wouldn't. Steve aside, Steve aside, I think this is not an attack. I'm not saying things, or I'm not saying this is an attack on anybody. And I can share my own when I fell for a hype for a game like this. It was a game that came out, I think, in 2009, called Spore, and that game was atrocious. That game was the worst.
This is that's the archetypical example of this exact loop.
Exactly, but I think I'm sure people fall. The first time you fall for tricks, it's never your fault, and even the second time, it isn't really. But you just need to try to learn some lessons every once in a while. No, I think people learn. It's just that there's always an influx of new players. So, it's just gonna come with different mindsets and different sort of backgrounds because they didn't get scammed by Electronic Arts like I did for Spore. Or
they got Robin Williams to promote that game.
I didn't get Robin Williams in my ads, but still, the point is that the first time or the second time, it's all right to fall for this stuff. You just need to really learn the right lessons and why it's so easy to fall for it. And I think the problem is the possibilities, because if somebody is telling you, I have this game where you can do this and this, and so the possibilities are endless, you need to be very, very wary of that person that is advertising a game to you, because when they're evoking possibilities, that's all for you to build them up in your head.
Yeah,
because
that's how you end up being a kid that really wants to turn into a werewolf in the game, and then you keep getting killed by werewolves over and over again, and you're like, when do you get infected with the werewolf thing? The Game Informer said that this would happen, and then you get really mad at Peter Molyneux.
You should get really mad at Peter Molyneux, including for the werewolf thing.
Yeah,
but also
he said that you could become a Balverine, and he said that you could, if you didn't camp correctly or whatever at night with the day-night cycle and the weather and stuff, that you could get you get sick. This is all for Fable 1, a game that does nothing. It is the blandest whatever, or shallow RPG with no interesting systems, and he had all these fucking promises.
Fable 1 is I never played it, mind you, but I did follow
Chaser shit.
I did follow the development, and what I observed was they are actively marketing this game for being simpler and shallower than the competition. Because it was the design.
His
entire
career was hinged on people continually not learning from being tricked this over and over again, to the point where the fucking. I remember hearing this was all the way back in college at this point, so it's a decade ago, I guess. But he made that Curiosity game, I think, or the one with the cube. You just poke at the cube and chunks of it disappear, and everyone's poking at the same cube, and whoever gets to the middle is going to get a big prize. And they totally fucked the guy that actually did win. He got basically nothing because among like the part of it was supposed to be like getting to hang out with the developers, but they like just kind of shunned him, and everything was just really awkward the whole time he was like on the trip or whatever. And then the big prize was to become God in the game that they never finished. So it never, like the whole thing was essentially a promo for a game they never actually ended up making. So like there was I remember it was Laura K. Buzz, or I think I might have listened to it on Giant Bomb or something, I forget. But like there was this look at like 2 years later, whatever did happen to the guy that won Curiosity and so on, and it's just like depressing and bland, and just like what a stupid fucking waste of time for everyone. Just another empty hype cycle from the same guy that just did it over and over and over. And like even if people did eventually get mad at Peter Molyneux and get sick of his shit, they didn't learn the lesson, because we keep doing it, because all of this predates Star Citizen
and No Man's Sky. Like, it's not just the studios and their marketing departments that do it. It's YouTubers as well. Like I often see people covering like new footage for new games or upcoming stuff, and they themselves like don't see the distinction between what could be that they are making and what they're actually showing you. So like any reaction channel that focuses on, or even it doesn't even have to focus.
Any
but
channel
if you see
where someone's supposed to like
reacting,
mug at stuff, they just always are going to have extreme reactions that are all the way negative or all the way positive, because extreme reactions to things are what get people engaged. So you just manufacture a response, and it's not really amounts to anything. At the same time, like you watch a channel like Your Overwatch or something like that, and it's like I can't believe any opinions they ever have, because like they're like, while you're in the weeds of Overwatch 1, like there's the up and downs of like, this patch is good, this patch is bad, here's what they should change, and blah 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 blah. But like when Overwatch 2 is coming out, you know they're going to talk about how it revolutionizes the game, and it's absolutely a perfect the shot in the arm that the game needed, and blah 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 blah, because like their livelihood depends on the sequel doing well, because their YouTube channel is like a fucking like not mollusk, a barnacle on the side of that game. Like they need it to survive, and not even like necessarily like talking shit. Like I get it. Like it's just, that's capitalism, and that's like living and having to make a living and everything. But like you can't trust the opinion of anybody whose like career is built on being attached to a particular individual game or whatever, which is what a lot of YouTubers do, like Asmongold and so on and so forth, because they're either going to be like they're going to be like somewhat exhaustingly positive because they have a financial incentive to profit off of the game doing well, or in some other cases they become part of the popular countercurrent that's all about talking shit about the thing forever, which is a thing that happens a lot with gamers too. But like in both cases, honesty is not the thing that's incentivized by that system. And especially not nuance or not having wildly extreme opinions and emotional reactions to everything. Like it's always like you've got to go to 11 because you've got to be like the loudest person so you can keep making a living by being the person who has an opinion about that specific game all the time.
But like this also trains the people watching though to think about games and upcoming games like that. It's not like it's like the biases of a YouTuber infect infect the watchers. Because then people are just gonna think, oh, this is how this YouTuber that I respect and agree with, that's how they approach new stuff. So when I see new stuff for myself, I'm gonna sort of, you learn with them. And like I've seen this happen. Actually, I know of one particular channel where they sort of realize, I think they realized that, and because they were focused too much on Blizzard stuff, Diablo stuff specifically, and then just over the years, Blizzard also hangs everybody out to dry. So no, it's no surprise there. But over the years, it's just sort of shifted to more general style news, but also with the same approach that they had to their Blizzard favorites. And so this is like all of the news come across as this sort of like hopeful, tune in next time to find out more. It's gonna all be amazing, and it's like about just general gaming news. And I see people treat that as well about whatever. Like that's the normal fan base. That's how people talk about games. Is this is probably gonna be great. And like I'm super jaded about a lot of stuff. But I can see hope in things. I can look at like I like right now, like I haven't had a game from Bethesda that I have truly genuinely enjoyed since Morrowind. Yeah. But I can look at Elder Scrolls 6 right now and we know nothing, and I can say, yeah, Elder Scrolls 6 could be amazing. But I know nothing. Like the possibilities are endless, right? Because we know nothing. The moment they show something that even hints at them not learning the right lessons, I immediately turn off, because they won't
learn the right lessons from my perspective, because all the people that like Skyrim like it for reasons that I don't agree with about RPGs in general. Like,
exactly,
they fundamentally want a different game from me, which is in many ways not an RPG. They want like an open world sandbox where you can have builds, but builds are not an RPG. It's a fundamentally different like priority.
They can mix, it's a very old.
But at some point, you're just like, hey, this company hasn't made a thing I like for 15 years. Maybe I shouldn't think any of the stuff they'll make is good. Which is exactly how. Like, that's my reaction to Square Enix constantly, where it's like, oh, a new Final Fantasy's coming out. It's like, oh yeah, when's the last good Final Fantasy? When was that? Because it's been 20 years. Fucking long time ago. Years. Yeah, it's been 20 years since Final Fantasy X.
Morrowind came out in 6th of June 2002. Right now it is
Final Fantasy X was the year 2000.
So it's happy 20th anniversary, Morrowind for Xbox.
Amari and my furry awakening.
I can't really say anything.
You're like, I've never
feel
liked
like it's
Final
always
Fantasy.
obvious. Well, it's just to me it's usually pretty obvious that like I don't think since I would say like maybe my early 20s I was an idiot, but I don't know, I don't think games were nearly as like obvious, I guess. Maybe I was just probably more arrogant. But I don't know, I think games are pretty obviously bad. Like you can tell when a game's lying on it through its teeth. Like it's just kind of like Cyberpunk was never going to be good, right? No one believed that. And if you did, like, how did you believe that? Who was?
I mean, that's the hype way.
What was your proof?
By default, most people believe that.
I know, but what I'm saying is like it's.
I had hopes for it being good because they had the track record of making good games.
Yeah, I had hopes as well.
Like
I started
like
losing
not only
those
Witcher 3, obviously, but like I had so much fun with Thronebreaker. I had a great time with Thronebreaker. And then
I need to play that.
And then Cyberpunk comes out and it's just like it's just miserable. It's just like this is just a slog. And the best part of the entire game is the opening storyline, which you then just throw in the garbage to make a shitty open world game for 50 hours. And the game's mysteriously kind of better for the last half an hour. It's like it's almost like this shouldn't have been the fucking non-linear open world game, apparently.
Which is so weird because I think the highlight of The Witcher is how well detailed and surprisingly written the side quests are.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if
they were just so fundamentally uncurious about their cyberpunk setting, so all of the quests were really fucking boring. And then the main story is a fucking ticking clock, which doesn't really fit well with an open world fuck around game. So it meant that they had to continually kneecap the main story and not have it feel like it had any weight, to the point where they're like, there's entire scenes that don't make sense in Cyberpunk, and you're like, I don't understand what's happening here. Like when you get later in the story and suddenly they start really caring about these pills, that you're like, do I even know what these pills are? Like you're like framing this as like a moral choice, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening when you're like in some motel and you're like, oh man, is it time to take these pills? And it's like, I don't know, why haven't you been reinforcing this throughout the last 30 hours if this is an important plot point? Because I don't even know what you're talking about.
My biggest problem with Cyberpunk, and I only watched you guys' Let's Plays.
You never ended up playing Cyberpunk?
2 Let's Plays. I never played, no. But my biggest problem is that it's limp and it's sort of uninterested in its setting.
Yeah.
And there are some really good, well-written characters here and there. And I forget, there are 2 characters.
One of them is shout out to the Joy Toy, I guess they were called.
Mm-hmm. The robot
called.
taxis?
The robot prostitute where you talk about your impending death, which is like the best scene of the entire game.
Oh yeah, I recall that.
I think they're called Joy Toys, yeah.
The one where a lot of people accidentally slept with a dude because his name was Angel, and it was just really funny that just a lot of people had a panic moment when they chose the wrong one from their perspective.
Or was it the wrong one?
Imagine being straight in Cyberpunk.
I know, right?
I don't remember what I chose.
Aggressively
I think
not straight setting.
Exactly.
I mean, speak for yourself. I turned that thing very straight. All I did was go through and kill everything. It's the straightest
That is
thing
pretty
possible.
straight. The school shooter version of straight.
Yeah, I did it. You can't.
I recall, wasn't there like a major character called America or something like that?
America.
That's not her name. What was her name? Pan America? Pan Am?
Oh, Pan Am.
Pan Am, yeah. I thought she was so well written up until the very end.
I hate that name because it sounds awkward every time to say.
I think it's a car. Is it supposed to be a car?
Pan Am?
I don't know. I always think of Pan
You killed her,
American.
most
Yeah,
likely.
like the isn't it like an airline? But it's also the
it could
name.
be
I
an
think it's also
airline.
the name of like the kingdom or whatever in Hunger Games. I think it's called Pan Am.
Oh.
I wasn't ready for it to be a person's name.
Oh.
This is where somebody gets mad at me because it is a real name or something.
Yeah.
But just like compare Cyberpunk with Cloudpunk, for example, and the level of passion and understanding and knowledge and like intention
And
behind
you
the
have a
writing.
talking dog. There's no dogs in
And-
Cyberpunk. F-.
Exactly. I wasn't even
I can't
considering the dog.
I can't even complain that they didn't name their talking dog after a philosopher or whatever because they just didn't even have a talking dog or a dog. So like, why do you even make a video game?
Wait, I forgot his name. Camus?
Camus?
Was the dog in Cloudpunk? Yeah, Camus. Is that a philosopher?
I'm trying to remember now.
Huh. I don't know philosophers.
Albert Camus is a Algerian-born French philosopher, author, dramatist, and journalist. There we go. I was pretty sure he was. Yeah.
Good.
Every single name of every single character in Cloudpunk is a reference, basically. They're really consistent about it to the point where whenever I was like, could that be like Harlan Ellison? It's like, yeah, of course it is. Of course they mean Harlan Ellison. Like any familiar sounding name. Octavia Butler. There was not remember Octavia was one of the characters like that. Always, yeah. Absolutely. But Albert Camus is in my brain because I watched Toaster Griff's video essays and Camus was in there.
I think the biggest, I've played a lot of games written by non-writers. Because that's how games are for the most part and have been for many, many years. And recently we start to see a little bit less of that in RPGs, but not too many. But like there's one of them just stands out really, and it's Torment Tides of Numenera, because basically all of its writing team are professional non-video game writers. And that's easy to do for that game because the game is very lengthy in its dialogue. It's not really written like a traditional role-playing game where you need to be good with like gameplay writing, which is difficult and special. Like you look at Pillars of Eternity and like writing that sort of dialogue is difficult for a normal book writer because it's just, you need to think differently and then like the metaphors and the pacing is all different. But Tides of Numenera isn't quite like that. And it just stands out so much because you're just like, it's the level of quality that you get from reading any normal random novel, unless you're like really reading like a really crappy novel. But like, you don't need to be an amazing writer of novel. Well, I say that not. There's caveats to what I'm about to say.
However you judge writer quality.
Yeah, but like even crappy writers are good, is what I'm saying. And like in video games, that does. Yeah, like if you get a novel published, like most likely it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be readable and it's gonna be nice and it's gonna if you haven't read a book ever, it's gonna be an amazing ride. It's very likely that happens. In video games, that's not the case. Even the best written video games
It's a good
historically,
book if you've never read.
What I'm saying is like video games are they're difficult to write, and so there's so many shortcuts that you have to go through, and especially when you have an editorial team or a publisher above you, which I feel is what happens with specifically Cyberpunk. is that I'm sure the writers were really good. I'm sure like the people who actively made up all the quest lines and all the world and all that, I'm sure they're super smart and they know a lot more than I do, certainly but then many writers. I'm sure their hiring practices, even though they can be like all bonkers every once in a while, I'm sure they at least find people who are good at writing. But the problem is the publisher, the people on top of the production of the game, they will filter all of their talent out because they're just going to want to filter the game through their lens. And I think Cyberpunk suffers from that more than any indie game ever could. Like an indie game like Outer Wilds. I was going to say Outer Worlds. Sorry, did I mix the names up again? Dang it. Outer Wilds. I didn't. Yeah, a game like Outer Wilds, the writing, it's not detached, but it is almost detached from the rest of the gameplay. It isn't, because the world is built around the setting and the lore and all that. But it feels a lot less filtered. I mean, the writing of Outer Wilds than any AAA game ever could and does, I feel. And when I say filtered, I mean like distilled to a common denominator thing, whatever the expression is called. And I think indie games just have that advantage. When I read people I saw an interview recently about We Happy Few, and the publisher be like, or not the publisher, but the studio themselves be like, we have this story, but we know our limitations in telling this story because we're a team of 30 people. And for us to flesh this story out, we need like AAA kind of backing, and we can't do it. So we know our limitations. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Some of the best stories are done by small teams. Have you never played Outer Wilds?
Nothing made me sadder than the whiplash of how good the trailers were for We Happy Few, and then finding out that it's some kind of fucking roguelike.
Yeah.
Like a structureless narrative light, sort of like stealth roguelike thing. I'm like, no, I was so ready for this game. Like I almost mentioned it earlier when I was talking about the retro futurist, like Bioshocky kind of games.
Mm-hmm.
What a cool setting.
I thought it was, it wasn't, I never thought it was very original though, We Happy Few, because it obviously is what it like, you get the twist immediately. You know what We Happy Few is, and the game is is centered, the gameplay is centered around you understanding the twist of
Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah. So like I never really saw the appeal, but then again, I don't watch the trailers too much. And I knew from the beginning that it was going to be a roguelike, because part of their marketing was like, you can play the game once and get a completely different ending than if you play the game twice. And I'm like, sure. That's not appealing to me.
That's like
I like that, but it's just
now.
That's old news. Yeah, that's old news. But like that, I think that's just my personal bias, because I see, for example, what was that game with a Wendigo and they had a song with the Oh Death, Oh Death? So yes, Until Dawn. That game, like on its face, was like, oh, this game has all these branching possibilities, and I'm like, here, Colonel RPG, me being like, yeah, sure, that's how RPGs, isn't it? But then I respect that in that game, because it isn't.
I mean, every single combination of characters could die or live, which is that's pretty decent.
It was pretty, yeah. Apart from just actually being,
there's some shitty cheats they use to make certain characters live for too long, but every single character can die or live, and that is more outcomes than you often get in those kinds of games.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like, despite if you boil it all down and really understand what they're doing, it's not that weird and complicated.
Yeah.
But
I like how
despite
weird
all the limitations,
that company's games are. Like we played Man of Medan together, and we played the weirdest version of that game, which is the one where you play two different perspectives simultaneously, and the entire game happens in real time from two different perspectives, which is an insane thing to do with the Walking Dead formula. That's fucking nuts. Including all the walk around like adventure game sections and stuff like that, where they can cheat a little bit, because one of you can just be stuck wandering around while the other one is actually triggering whatever precedes the story or whatever. But I have since played that Man of Medan as couch co-op. We played it. We played it with the household, and everyone was sitting, we were whoever was next would play on the computer, and then everyone else would sit watching the TV that synced up with the computer, and we were all sitting on the couch just enjoying the weird collaborative horror experience. First of all, it's way fucking longer when you're not playing it in simultaneous co-op because all the scenes play one by one. But I saw a lot of scenes that we never saw. Like, for example, the guy that fucking took off at the beginning of the story and was just out of the story immediately in our playthrough.
Yeah.
He died to like one of the mascot monsters, like one of the monsters that's like on like in the advertising for the game, which we never encountered. It is actually there to kill him, and he died on the ship that way. And I'm like, oh, that's a completely different fucking path through this story. Also found out real quickly how quickly you can die in that game if you're not very good at QTEs, because Stephanie is not good at QTEs. Like not gatekeeping or anything, but like, you know, Stephanie tends to play like Animal Crossing and Night in the Woods and Stanley Parable and so on. And so if you throw a QTE at her in any video game, she looks at the controller to figure out what the button is. And so Until Dawn, she just like I learned real fast how abruptly characters could die because she killed like half the cast. Like really quickly. And one of the problems with those kinds of games is just like, sure, there's wildly different outcomes, but are they? You also got to ask whether or not they're actually narratively satisfying endings, because like you can have a bunch of characters just die completely randomly and almost never get mentioned again, and you're like, what was the point of this?
That's why writing RPGs is so difficult, because you need to sacrifice that narrative satisfaction. You can never really, like, you can have the best solution for a quest and be like, or not best, but like the most narratively satisfying solution to a quest. But a lot of players will just either see it as unsatisfying because they didn't want that to happen, or because they had an attachment to a certain character or what they wanted. Like, that's why RPGs are different in that regard. You're not there to tell an interesting story. You're there to let the player tell their story. And just going back to Until Dawn and the way it markets, in-game markets its own sort of branching storyline solutions, I think that's valuable because it teaches a lot of players that normally don't get to understand branching storylines in such a visceral way. It teaches them the value of the replayability of a game. And I wish more games had stuff like that, or embrace that a little bit more. But also at the same time, it does require people to have that sort of like self what would be the word? It's like a sadistic I say sadistic, but it's like a sadistic aspect of you, that if you're telling a story that is sort of bittersweet, those are usually the best stories, and doing that in an RPG is really difficult. You're not going to ever aim for the bittersweet ending, but those are the best endings. And those are usually the endings that people tell in stories. And so having an RPG like that is
challenging difficult. Things where you don't even know, people will argue about what to even feel about the ending.
Yeah.
At Astra. Speaking of games that feel unfiltered and written by one person, because they are, that's one of my favorite parts about indie games, is that on a regular basis you get to play a game that was written by a person instead of like a bizarre melange of teams where you can't even like. Good luck even crediting who wrote your favorite quest in Fallout 3 or whatever. Like,
I know,
who wrote it? Do you know? Can you tell? I think about this because when I was looking at the credits for because I wrote like the beginning of an essay about Kingdoms of Amalur, and then it's just been sitting there, but like I did the whole history and everything about the game. And one of the things I really got onto is specifically the fact that, like, of course, like R.A. Salvatore did not actually work on the game. What he did is he wrote the backstory to an MMO that the game was then retrofitted to be in the same setting as. He wrote the backstory for a different video game, and that's quote unquote how much he worked on Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning. Like, he didn't write any of the quests, which is what people somehow convinced themselves they did, even though the quest writing is so obviously bad that you would hope that they would realize he didn't write them. But there's nothing that people are worse at judging than the writing of video games, apparently. Like, gamers are just they settle for anything. But yeah, like when I was going through the credits, I'm like, oh yeah, so the lead writer of Kingdoms of Amalur was a quest writer on Fallout 3.
Mm.
Like a scenario writer, one of them. That was the lead writer of All of Amalur. Like, oh
Oh,
no. And then he
That's
doesn't
not
really
a
have a lot
lot.
of credits beyond that, so I'm like, that's a little distressing. That explains a lot.
so what the Tides of Numenera did, Torment Tides of Numenera, is they actually hired
Was that game also written by
freelance-
the guy that everyone's Hatsune Miku?
what? That's an Amico? What? No.
The person that people
that's
credit
Harry
everything
Potter.
to when whenever there's a distressing person that worked on something, there's
No,
a certain there's a certain distressing RPG writer that we
Oh
don't like
yeah,
to think
right.
about.
It was.
Did he?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's
Because didn't he
there's
write
one,
both
at least one character.
Torment games?
Wrote the original completely, I think, but the
Yeah.
second one is just one character. And you'll be happy to hear that it's not the best character, but it's also not terrible. But like I had this one boss that it's a boss because it's an enemy, but there's this like very verbose kind of character that you have a very long discussion with, and he's just so well written. I had to ask in Exile, and I asked them who wrote this character, and they actually said. And then I looked up who that person was. They have like novels and stuff, and they're a freelance writer. They write video games every once in a while. And then I found the same sort of scenario with another character in Pillars of Eternity 2 that I also enjoyed a lot. And I asked Obsidian who wrote that, and they said it's another person. And I looked them up, and they were also a freelance writer. I don't think they wrote. I don't remember the names right now, but basically what I get the impression is that at least in Exile and Obsidian basically outsource some side quests to be like, hey, I want you to write this character over here. And so that's cool because you're dealing with different characters, and so they have different writing styles, which is totally fine. But also it just allows them to tap into skills and people who are just really good at writing, even though they may not be the most famous writer out there, but they're just good because they have experience, and they have experience writing books and stuff. And Titus Numenera has some really good moments, and I don't see that quality of writing in other In Exile games. Even though I thought Bard's Tale 4 wasn't a badly written game, but Wasteland 3 and 4, 2 and 3, I should say, are not good examples of good writing. I should think, but Torment is, I think. But I mean, the problem with that game is that it is very long. The game is all about, it's like a visual novel basically, except a little bit more interactive. But it's just like you reading dialogue for hours and hours and hours, and people are expecting dialogue to just be a side dish. It is not that. It really is not.
I just want more writing in general. Usually, like like when I'm playing something like Amalur, it's like, what's all this combat getting in the way of the story? But then you get to the story and you're like, oh, this wasn't worth it.
It was. I still think Kingdoms of Amalur has its dialogue written as if people don't want to read it. Like they know people are just gonna skip it,
Like
so they just write
it's all
whatever.
written like World of Warcraft quest dialogue, but then they voiced it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number of games that just has dialogue not worth writing, not worth voicing, that is voiced, and then the number of games that has dialogue worth voicing that isn't, is just like, it's a bad breakdown. Anyway, Star Citizen was the question.
So yeah, Star Citizen, they're promising the universe, and it's obviously going to be bad.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the landscape of Kickstarter video games, so I can't tell you what it was like before or after Star Citizen. I don't remember. I remember Double Fine doing a bunch of Kickstarters and kind of embarrassing themselves by fucking up over and over again. Like, speaking of people that overpromised and got more money than they asked for, but then still couldn't deliver most of the time. A lot of some of the games we were just talking about, or at least other games about those companies, exist because of Kickstarter. Actually, a lot of CRPGs exist these days. Like the modern resurgence of CRPGs was basically funded entirely on Kickstarter, because it was the Shadowrun games, Pillars of Eternity, I think Wasteland. Like
Wasteland 2 and 3 both.
Yeah,
and
like really
Dark Sail
consistently.
4, yeah, and Tides of Numenera and BattleTech from
Yeah,
the same folks who did Shadowrun.
that company just kept going back.
I mean, it makes
was
sense.
Baldur's Gate 3 also Kickstarter?
Also, yes.
Yeah, like it's really consistent for CRPGs type games. Although I get the feeling that actually I haven't looked at actually is Baldur's Gate 3 a CRPG?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, if it is anything in the spirit of the original one, then yeah, it's
Is
like
it like a top-down
quintessential.
camera CRPG style thing, but then also you have BioWare style cutscenes? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's gonna be basically it's Divinity Original Sin 2, but with the closer to the characters.
Dude,
Cutscenes.
I need that.
Yes,
I
you and me both.
benefit so much whenever the camera actually looks at the characters, or maybe you get really good portraits of every single character, like in Disco Elysium or something. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I need faces more. It's really hard for me to play
Disco
something
Elysium
like
was also kickstarted.
yeah, but like it's so hard to play something like Wasteland 2, I think, where it's just like a bunch of vague brown blobs just all talk at each other via a text feed, and you're like, I don't remember who you are. You don't have a face or a voice, and it's really hard to remember 50 names. And so it's so helpful to have like faces and if you can like little cutscenes like BioWare style, like back and forth shot, reverse shot. Like it's just so much better for me being able to follow the story and the characters and caring about them enough to remember the continuity of the interactions with them, so that I can then be like, oh, that's why this matters. Like I remember a random Turian from the bar Flux at the beginning of Mass Effect 1 better than I remember most NPCs in Wasteland 3. Like the retired general guy that's at because you can see him and he's got a weird voice and he's got weird markings, and you get curious about his markings and how his mandibles are moving and shit, and you're just looking at him during the cutscene and you're having his little chat and you're like, why do they have weird sock hats? There's all sorts of curiosities there, as opposed to just like, I don't know, there's a weird smear on my screen, I think it's talking to me.
Yeah, the building of memories of certain characters is just unparalleled if you see them rather than just listening to them.
There's a benefit to smaller casts in many cases.
I attribute the success of Fallout 1 and 2 as well to the talking heads and you being able to see the people, the important characters.
Yeah.
Because, that was groundbreaking back then.
Yeah, you could actually see the characters up close and all that, and they also had portraits, and they didn't necessarily always look like the same person.
No, Fallout 1 and 2 don't have portraits. They're just have either talk or it's the
I blanked.
Top down. Yeah.
I blanked and thought you said Pathologic 1 for some reason.
Oh, Pathologic.
But the talking heads in Fallout 1. Those are so good whenever they come up that you wish they were around so much more.
Yeah. You did miss some of them, but not too many. Fallout 1 doesn't have that many.
The Fallout 1's opaque as fuck.
The second one is even worse.
It's so hard to tell where you're going or what's happening, and even who you click on. And there's like, here's a room with 50 of the same guy. One of them's an important NPC. The other ones don't want to talk to you.
Promise.
And you can't tell which one's which.
And
also one of them is your follower that also looks like them.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a certain perk when you're going to combat, you can't tell it apart with a highlight. They all are red.
Oh my god.
That's actually something that they changed in Fallout 2.
All you fuckers that say you didn't look anything up are lying.
No. People didn't look anything up. They just were mistaken for a very, very long time after playing the game multiple times. Like, I didn't know you could highlight well, maybe I'm wrong. I'm still wrong about this. But if you press shift, you highlight items that are on the floor. And I didn't know this until 2016. So.
Shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I expect Star Citizen to either be vaporware or disappointing.
I played the early access already. I don't know what it was, but there was an early access version of Star Citizen where you shot a few things and were bored in space for a little. That's my experience.
Yeah.
Bored in space.
Also, when I talk about fucking fanboys of these things, like I've encountered this, like. Someone got really mad at me for suggesting that Star Citizen won't pan out or will be disappointing or bad or not come out or whatever. Like, they got really mad at me about this like 6 years ago or something, I think. it's still just this forever like work in progress thing. Like people get so attached to these things. It's just so unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't really understand that so well. I think some of it might be just posturing and being like, you're
He
an
made a
enemy
weird
of
like
me.
incel nerd argument type thing where he was like talking about how like giving up this weird thing about how like life's hard for people like us or whatever, or and we just need a win or something. Like it was just a bizarre beleaguered like
Wait,
I'm fucking I'm putting everything on this fucking game for some reason. And it's like, why Star
it's an
Citizen?
MMO.
Learn what indie games are. I fucking dare you. You can,
Yeah.
they'll do everything you want them to, and there's infinite, like there's so many opportunities for good gaming experiences, and you're hinging it all on this one random fucking over promising nightmare. Stop.
I don't get it either. But specifically, I don't get
I
it
think
with Star Citizen. If you're like, I don't know, if you're like mad at the Codemasters that they're now Electronic Arts, and I get that because they're AAA, they're the only ones that have like the F1 franchise and whatever, and they're the niche kind of game, right? And like every other studio making things are going to have drawbacks, and but like even then, it's just the indie scene is just a lot better always. Like I don't know, it's an MMO. What? How can you be starved for content? There's just so much of it. Go play PlanetSide 2 or something, or
Don't
the other one that's Star
understand
Wars.
people.
Yeah,
Understand.
so sorry. Was this
I don't
breed?
really. I have like, yeah, it is breed, but I don't.
Mhm.
It's look, if you're still committed to a game that's you're still committed to paying for a Kickstarter for a game 3 years after it's been promised to come out, fine.
10 years.
Like that's well, now it is, but I'm saying once you reach a 3-year mark and the game doesn't come out, and you're like, nah, I'm just gonna still be in it. All right, fine. I don't care.
At some
Have
point,
fun.
at
Have
some
fun
point, you
with
start
the
transforming into like a conspiracy theorist.
yeah, and like at the end of the day, I really don't care about Star Citizen.
You're a Star Citizen
like
truther.
I guess I remember a coworker telling me, like, trying to convince me that it was gonna like revolutionize gaming, and I was like, look, if it's gonna revolutionize gaming, then I don't need to Kickstarter it. You already have an idea that should make money, right? It's revolutionary. What the fuck do I need to be here for it? So if it wasn't that revolutionary, then I guess it wasn't revolutionary enough for like literally every game company that's struggling hard to come up with the next big thing that's going to make them trillions of dollars. Just didn't want it. Said, nah, it wasn't good enough. Or, hear me out, or is it possible that this is all a scam?
Well, I'll give
Probably a
them one.
scam. Definitely a scam, but that's okay because it's flagrantly obvious enough that if you fall for it, really it's just Kickstarter's fault for, or like Patreon's fault for letting it continue.
I'll give them one
Or whatever.
thing,
I think
though.
actually their system, right? They have their own pay system now. I
Maybe.
want to say like StarCitizens.com isn't theirs. That's really
Oh
funny.
yeah, I mean they
Um,
did move from Kickstarter early on, like after the original, because campaigns only are for so long, and this has been a fucking forever project.
Yeah.
They just started like gaining infinite money via their website. Like you can keep donating forever.
Up
Yeah.
until
Like
now,
I'm on their website right now, and I can pay $40 for a little ship to drive in, like a little car. Pay $40
ship.
for a car.
It is kind of like a proto Patreon sort of thing.
I'll give them one thing, though. For a game that claims, or at least people claim, that it's going to revolutionize gaming, whatever that means, there's no on their Wikipedia page anyway. There's no mention of NFTs, so that's good.
What do they need NFTs for?
It's the
To
next
make more
new
money
revolutionary.
unethically.
They're
Yeah.
already selling you NFTs. If you pay $200 for a fucking standalone ship in a game,
That is, yeah, exactly.
You've done
Yeah.
it. You've already
You've done
bought an NFT. It just has no resale value. You're just an idiot.
I was gonna say the
Like,
game does
it's
have non-fungible like ship purchases, doesn't
yeah,
it?
like they're scummier than NFTs. At least NFTs have the like lie that you can sell it to somebody. You can't even sell this shitty scorpion you bought for $220 in the goddamn pledge store. You can't sell it. It's stuck
Why
with
would you
you
do
for
that?
life.
Why would you
Why?
pay that much
Because
money?
somebody is sitting there going like, man, you know what? This is just the peak. Gaming will never achieve a better simulation of flying through space. And God damn it, I won't
Then
live
this
long enough to see it
hypothetical
because
game that might exist one day.
it's I don't know. Well, you can click the play now button, Keith. What the fuck are you being so indignant about? You want which one do you want to buy? You want to buy the $45 version or the $70 version of the game? All right.
I would like to
And
play a
both the same
good video
game.
game.
But you're somehow gonna play the 75 version.
it's only $70, and hey, it comes with 6 months of ship insurance, so that's good. You might need that in
What?
case your ship blows up.
Wait.
Um,
Don't like the
Oh, did I
suggestion
not
of
tell
losing
you?
my
There's
purchase.
actually insurance. Yeah, there's insurance in the game for the ships because you can lose your ships.
That sounds like racketeering, honestly. Is that illegal?
Be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah. They have a system made by them where you lose your thing that you paid for and you can pay to not lose it. What? That sounds like racketeering to me. I don't know.
Why are video games?
To make money.
No.
Let's see,
Never
what is the
Never forget. Some of them are to be good, but many are to make money.
it's
Anything.
what's it called? So I am joking. It's not, you don't lose your ship forever. The problem is you have to pay a lot of money to get it back. So you don't always have access to it if you can't afford to rebuild the ship that you destroyed. So the idea is that you could pay $200 for a ship, you blow it up, and now you may have to spend like several months trying to farm enough money to rebuild that ship you paid $200 for.
This is a dystopia.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's better in the sense that it's not. Someone isn't literally stealing your money.
No, it's
But
just like,
it is a
why
dystopian-
play any?
it-
Just
yeah.
play something else. That sounds like what a fucking
Yes.
nightmare. Why would you want this?
It's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot here. I mean, granted, now you can get lifetime insurance if you're a big spender.
So it's literally pay to win.
Yes.
It's always been pay to win. It's never not been. I mean, it's Star Citizen is literally space capitalism. That's all it is. It's just you just have to have money or not have a good time with Star Citizen. That's been the whole point.
Just not sure how anyone ever pretended it was an escapism thing if it's a fucking space capitalism world where the capitalism is hooked into our capitalism. So it's still affected by our money.
It's escaping the reality that when you get off work, you just go back home to your shitty middle class home with your shitty middle class family, living what you think is a middle class life in a building that has a lot of repairs needed on it because you don't have any money because you're not getting paid adequate for your labor. But you get to play a silly space game when you get home. You get to be a little astronaut in your spaceship that you paid a lot of money for instead of replacing the fucking roof tiles that went out like two seasons ago. Like it's alarming. I get that, again, it's probably a whale thing, just like Genshin Impact or just like mobile
Star
games.
Citizen
I don't even know if
having
mobile games are
famously
real.
invented space.
They invented space scams. There you go. They were the first to invent space scams.
That pause that was
Isn't that
long
like
enough
a
to make you wonder if
basketball?
everything broke.
It's I don't really even understand. Like, I've seen videos of Star Citizen. It's not. I understand the idea of like WoW, for example. People play WoW for a millennia, and they do it because there is like a drive, a game motivation to do what's happening in the game. to go on all those quests to get all that loot to grind your character or whatever. But Star Citizen doesn't have that. It doesn't. It. There's nothing about Star Citizen that would propel me to continue going after a small window of starting. Like you would just fall off, so to speak. And I think that's alarming, given that it has like a $40 or $45 entry fee. Like I wouldn't want to. Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I don't know. I wouldn't spend $40 on an alpha.
Just go
I
get
wouldn't
a
do that.
space CRPG, or go get a space simulator, or go play Eve, or play a Six
Yeah, if you
Degrees
want,
of
like-
freedom flight game. There's like dozens of them. They're beautiful. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like any of them. I don't like those kinds of games, but they're there. I don't like flying a ship.
There's yeah, you don't like flying a ship.
No, not unless it's like Artemis. That's fun.
That's a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, the bridge
Artemis?
Yeah, Artemis, the spaceship bridge simulator. That's like it's like you're on the Star Trek deck, and so you're like six
Oh,
people
right.
flying one ship. That's
Yeah, but that's more
pretty
like
neat.
a puzzle game.
Not so much a puzzle game. It's just one person has to try to coordinate all these people, and they all have to do their individual jobs and respond to threats and so on, and like modulate the shields and bring us around and fire torpedo, all that shit. It's actually really it's really amusing because like the way we had it set up in Marty's place, because he went all in on it. We have videos of these still. They're kind of neat. They're iffy, and they're like questionably put
Quality.
together because it's kind of hard to. It was really hard to film to begin
Yeah.
with. But what is it? Like the captain would just sit in a chair and look at Marty's TV and just have to shout things at everybody. And everybody else was on a bunch of laptops and computers in the room, and they were all actually playing the game. And it was like the authentic, like, this person genuinely can't directly control the game situation. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were like the top videos on that game at one point. We were featured on the Penny Arcade Report when that one
Yes.
noteworthy
Yeah.
gaming journalist wrote an article about it, but I can't even look at any of this anymore because that entire website just is gone.
Oh yeah.
That was like that was our claim to fame for a while there compared to anything else we've done.
Yeah, it was it went off pretty well. It was fun. It was a fun little game. It is, yeah, obviously that's like the pinnacle of it. It's really hard to achieve that. It'd be really hard to achieve that again, right?
Oh
I'd
shit.
like it.
Speaking of indie games, Salt and Sacrifice came out a month ago and I didn't even notice till just now.
Wait, that's not the same game that came out a while back?
Salt and Sanctuary is the first game.
Oh no, they didn't name it properly.
They made a sequel called Salt and Sacrifice, which like I knew it was coming because I think in my Elden Ring reaction video or whatever I then watched the trailer for Salt and Sacrifice. I didn't even realize it was out until just now. It's been out for a month. Whoops.
Oops.
I didn't realize it was a different game.
Yep. They done made another one. I wonder if it's got co-op or something. Like online co-op maybe this time. Maybe I can backdoor that into being my next co-op series with Bird or something instead of
not a
trying to
very
find
good-
time in the schedule.
It's not a very good name though, is it? It's like Outer Wilds naming their sequel The Outer Worlds.
Did you know the same person one person wrote for both games?
Mm-hmm. Ashley Beecham.
Yeah, she's the one that wrote that tweet where she was like, what is it, like, I got a useful mnemonic. It's like Outer Wilds is the game that I wrote for because of the I.
Yeah.
But then I think she worked. Was it that way around? I think she worked on Outer Worlds and then the Outer Wilds and then the Outer Worlds DLC. Or did she work for the Outer Worlds game, then the Outer Wilds DLC? She worked on the DLC for the other one afterwards, whatever one was the other one.
Only the DLC for Outer Worlds, yes.
Yeah.
She does the llama mission. There's like a llama in a mountain. I think she wrote other things as well.
Also, those DLCs were bad.
They
I like the
were not
second
good.
one.
How
like
many
the
of the
first
how many
one.
DLCs were there?
Only 2.
There's only 2.
Yeah, the second one is the one with the movie star.
Oh yeah. You know, I had issues with it.
Yeah, I had
I
issues
definitely.
with it as well.
It has world problems because like there's a creeping. The narrative is almost like implying that there's like a creeping slow build problem happening, but the game is like the fucking problem's exploding at you and you have to shoot it in the face like 30 seconds into the DLC, and then everyone just acts like it's not happening, like no one notices. And you're like, wait, what? Like it does not. They completely like there was zero pathologic DNA going on there. Like they had no idea how to merge their world with the narrative of that expansion.
Mm-hmm. And the first DLC also had kind of similar problems where it was really a detective sort of game where you were
the
supposed
first
to just
DLC breaks the narrative of the main game and its setting in a horrifying way, and makes you feel bad about everyone you've ever shot, but doesn't let you do anything about it or even comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they didn't realize what they were doing.
My biggest problem is that
wait, which one?
Yeah, Outer Worlds. Yeah. The DLCs are, one takes place in a moon where there's like this rich person being like, oh no, this moon is not productive anymore. And the second one is in a hotel resort thing where they're like, oh no, this person was killed.
Yeah.
But the one in the moon, basically, it's a game of you reading a lot of computer things and trying to piece things together. And like you spend hours and hours reading all those things. And I think that's where the meat of the DLC is. But the problem is it's also an open world full of enemies to shoot. And it really breaks the pacing, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, all of Outer Worlds had a problem of just having too much random combat, just wasting your time. In a game that mostly would have benefited from basically not having combat narratively.
Yes.
It would have been probably a lot better of an experience. Without
apart from when you
the option.
I could just never get like it's just another script I never finished, but like I can just never quite get over the fact that you spend basically the entire game helping the corpse, even if you're against them, because basically everyone you shoot is their enemy.
Keith, we live in a society.
We live in a society.
That's the ultimate message, and I honestly thought it was the ultimate message of the game, is the sort of how difficult it is to tell, like the characters. I remember having like a real clear understanding of that when I finished it. So now I'm kind of fumbling, but like every different person has a different idea of how to solve the problems in that world, and none of them have a really good grasp of why they're fucked up in the first place, because the game doesn't want to make that sort of political statement outright. From one side of the argument, it's bad that the game doesn't make the statement outright, but it does base the world around, ultra capitalism in space. But nobody ever criticizes ultra capitalism in the game. But on the other hand, it also paints a world where it's like it's hopeless in a way that like Parvati sees the good in people and tries to come up with these better solutions for the people who are closer to the ground, as it were, and the people who she directly works for and respect are completely detached from that, and they just sort of and like early in the game she says he's good people about the person who's like the most responsible for all the shit the first settlement is in, the boss of that cannery thing, and I think that for me that painted the whole game in that light of like these people have vastly different understandings of reality, but none of them are correct because none of them have the systemic understanding of why they're in this shit in the first place. And the game paints that. I think it's the whole, you spend the whole game helping the corpse anyway, and that's the fate the characters are in as well. Like, it's not the best story to tell, but for a apolitical AAA game, I suppose it's a story that they can tell. Because I still think it's not a political story. It's a social story.
It's a confusing narrative of like obsessive criticism, but without ever talking about going any even slightly deeper than that. Like just being vaguely it sure sucks to work at Best Buy, doesn't it? The game. And like no context of how Best Buy exists and why it sucks to work there, and why, like the context of that.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, you can't make a game like Outer Worlds without um understanding why it sucks to work at Best Buy. Like, it's not like it's not Cyberpunk, basically. Because Cyberpunk is made by people who don't understand Cyberpunk.
Yeah, no, Outer Worlds is written by people who know what they're not writing in it.
Yeah.
But they're still not writing that stuff in it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I would have liked them to write those things in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've played the second expansion. I think I've only played the first one.
You're not missing much.
Yeah. I mean, there are people living, and that means I am missed out on making sure people remember their place in this galaxy that is mine now. So
I liked the
that
twist at the
is
end and how they pulled it off. But it isn't like
3 new weapons. Oh, okay.
wow, can't wait to use the same weapon I
Whatever
was
that
using.
means in that kind of game.
Yep. Great.
The
I
barrier
don't
is
think
so
I'll need
low
them.
for a new weapon.
I think my weapons worked just fine in my conquest.
I eventually was just like, fuck it, and just gave my entire team Gatling guns, no matter what their build was or what their skill. Granted, that game just forgot to have builds in it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for your companions. They just get a bunch of mostly unimpactful skills you can buy just to feel like you're progressing. It is the most RPG-light mechanics I've seen. It's strange.
They really screwed up the character system and the itemization system and the builds for your character. Like,
and the entire difficulty scaling.
Also that. They shouldn't have.
But then they made the combat most of the game. Great.
You said it right. That game shouldn't have combat. And it is true. It shouldn't. The perfect Fallout 3 example of remove all the combat, the game gets better. But also you pay more attention. But in Fallout 3 you pay more attention to the writing if you remove all the content, and it highlights how the writing is bonkers. But in Outer Worlds it would be better. Like, I really have some characters. It's not even about agreeing with them or not. I thought Nyoka was a really well written character. The way she's introduced was really well written. Not so much the ending of her quest. And that guy that is in the planet with all the farts. I forget his name. The one that's more corporate. The farts, the farts planet. He's
farts.
You don't remember the farts planet? The one with all the combat. It smelled the farts.
Oh yeah, the one part with all the combat that stands out so well from all the other parts with all the combat.
Oh no, you do. You know the planet though, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I don't remember.
No,
that game is like
there's one.
It goes through you.
I don't remember the name of the planet.
Fleshed out immediately.
But there was one planet where there's 3 factions competing for power. Basically, one of them is the more corporate, sort of friendly.
Yes.
The other one has a bakery, has a thing with pigs and pork and onions or whatever. And the other one,
beans. Excuse my
pork and beans. And the other one, they're like these anarchists or something. They have a specific name that I forget the name of, and I say anarchists, but they're not anarchists. No, they were called something else. and it's a planet where you just fight so many enemies, and it's always the same because it's all those Zerg-looking enemies.
Yeah, no, it's the shitty sulfur planet. That's a huge waste of time.
That's the one. Yes.
It's just it's just a massive wasteland of fucking nothing between 3 quest hubs, and they make you keep running around or teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
And you can land in 2 different locations, and so you're like, oh, I'll explore this path and this path, and you're like, this wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I didn't complete that planet.
You must have gotten through the main quest because it goes through there. You find this radio dude in there. It's just like, I'm all crazy, and then that's the main quest. And then a ship falls, and the ship falls from the sky.
So the main quest gives you the option to not pick a side.
Yeah, I think
but then I thought a ship always falls.
A ship
always falls, but I meant that you could just walk away from giving anyone access to the to the weapon. You can just walk away from that. And so I did, because they wouldn't let me. There wasn't an option to wipe out both of them. So I said, like, well, then I guess if I just leave them alone, in theory they'll kill themselves, right? So I can just do that. And so it was like, yeah, that was the end credit. Was like, and then these 2 people just killed each other. And I was like, okay, perfect. That's what I wanted. So fine. But
See, that's
yeah, no,
it's
I
a
didn't. So
rewarding
I never
experience.
I never technically beat it because I didn't get to see what the conclusion, if you pick one side or the other, does.
Oh, it
Or
ends.
what the-
It's
It's
like a dialogue
underwhelming.
thing. It's underwhelming. Yeah.
I think there was also a quest that got bugged that I never got to see the ending of. It was like I had a it was like I had to give drugs to this girl who was going to help me find something, but the game wouldn't let me cancel the quest. It wouldn't let me just like throw the quest away. It was like, no, you have to do this. And so I was like, okay, but you only have to do this if you don't know where the location is. So if I just go out and find it myself, then this character's irrelevant, right? And so you can do that. It's not like the quest line is just this character brings you to the location and that's it.
Oh, I think I know
Um
the quest. Yeah.
and so like I just basically went, no, I'm not gonna give you drugs, and I'm not gonna like, because if you say no, she's like, I'm not gonna help you then. It's like, okay, but it doesn't end the quest. It just says like, go get the drugs, idiot. That's how you go forward. And it's like, no, I won't do that. So I just walked off and it let me do that. But it kept this stupid fucking quest on my screen the whole time. Like, hey, you really should go back to that second planet and talk to that girl. I'm like, what? I'm like on the end game. Like, can we not? Can we like forget about that person? Are they even still here? I think like I think I tried like killing them to get the quest to go away, and it still didn't do anything. And I was like, what
Yeah.
the fuck? Like,
All RPGs should allow you to remove quests. That's just how it should work. Just no, I don't
that
want
would be
this.
hard given that there's
It
some.
wouldn't.
I
It's just a
imagine there's
flag.
some like,
It's just adding a flag in the code and be like, this quest has been removed, and check.
but I'm
Check
sure
every
like
time.
I imagine that there are specific, especially with a narrative-based game, there has to be flags that are relevant to story-wise, or else you would have no idea what's happening. You just show up suddenly, and the game's like, "Man, I can't believe you wiped out those colonists." And you're like, "What the fuck is this person talking about? Like, what colony? I didn't do anything."
In the journal, like you have a list of your quests, and there's that one quest that's broken. Like I grew up playing RPGs where this was just commonplace. You finish the game with dozens of quests that are just, I finished this, but it's still there, or this one is unbeatable, or I don't want to do it.
As somebody who has consistently played RPGs on my channel forever, like you always just have like the five off quests that you just like, they're just there kind of, and you just learn to ignore them continuously.
I don't like that.
Divinity Original Sin and the first and the second, both of them allow you to hide quests, which is incredible, and I love it. And honestly,
hiding would have been fine. I would have been completely fine if I could just like get rid of it from my face.
Yeah,
like I just hated the fact that it was constantly there. Like it just felt annoying to like open the journal. It's like, you have one uncompleted quest. I'm like, yeah, I know I have one. I know, I see it every day. I see it every time I kill a person and shake the life out of them. It's right there reminding me. Like, why?
I had one incomplete quest, and it was one where you had to go across multiple planets and give specific pieces of vestments to different people. Or something to that extent. It was like a fetch quest across multiple planets, and I'm like, no. Just no. I could edit out all the progress, but not even that. No, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
I think there's only
in
two
any game
quests
that's like here's
that.
your 500 locations, and then they're like, what if you had to like visit all of them for one quest? That's always
and the payoff is
like
bad.
Andromeda has one of those inevitably, and you're like, there's like 10 locations. You tried to attach them all to one quest just to make me fucking like stare at loading screens continuously for half an hour. Like, why'd you make this quest? You had the choice to just not do this.
Yeah. I remember there being two. The other one I think was just going across the same map, but the map was enormous. You had to go across all the map and just activate some things randomly. And then the payoff was just like some bollocks being like, oh yeah, thanks, that helps. Here's money. And I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not doing the other one. Money, that is very important in that game, as we well know. That and ammo. And healing items.
Almost every RPG that isn't pathologic really struggles to have any kind of any kind of internal economy that makes any sense, or you have to think about ever. Like, I don't know, there's a bunch of money and there's a bunch of bullets and there's a bunch of guns, and it's like almost inevitably those entire games are like, you found your favorite gun once 10 hours ago, and that's all you carry, and you passively pick up ammo without thinking about it, and you just kind of like are basically trying to come up with things to even spend money on, because it's hard to even find things that are worth it. It's like, I don't... They're
Mass
just...
Effect 2,
it's like an incoherent genre.
Mass Effect 2 does it in a really weird way, where basically you always have money for everything, but just enough. So it feels like money is just another, here's items that you get for free, instead of like, because you do get items for free, but you also get money. And it's really weird, because I'm at the end of the game now and I have almost no money, but I bought everything. And it's just like, sure, this feels nothing. Just could have might as well just given me the items instead of the money, because the money is always super ridiculous as well. You arrive in like a space station trying to save whoever is remaining there, and well, there's a PDA. Let me hack this PDA while there's enemies shooting at me, and then I get 320 credits or something like that. It's just like ridiculous, especially in my Let's Play where I'm editing out all of the mini games, because of course I am. And it's just like PDA hack, click a button, and it's just money. And I'm like, yes. That is definitely not weird at all that I'm doing this. And it's always PDAs. Like it's also so lovely that people have PDAs in space.
Sure is handy.
Yeah, they store their
your,
info in
your
their
entire approach of like obsessively editing out the boring parts of RPGs is just such a thing. I can't imagine.
I'm very satisfied.
I'm just resigned to them. It's like, yep, you're doing this for the 500th time. Wish the game was different.
Yeah, there's value in that as well.
It's like the point
just
that like H-Bomber Guy's video about Deus Ex and how just the sheer number of time you have to play the hacking minigame, and then they also made lockpicking the hacking minigame again, and you're like, no, please. You stop making me play the same thing forever.
Incidentally, the Deus Ex Mankind Divided was Human Revolution was one of the last games that I didn't edit, so that Let's Play is full of mini games.
Yeah,
because it is absurd. I do enjoy that one though, but it is still absurd. It's mindless, so that's why I like it. Better than Frogger, or what's the Mass Effect 2 one? Just
Thank God.
Match cards. Mass Effect 1 is a Frogger game in like a circle, and Mass Effect 2 is like these little things where you hover over them and see the icon and just have to match two. It's like
I played Mass Effect 1 on Xbox, where it's just a QTE basically.
Oh.
Like they just say to
Really?
press these buttons. I don't remember if you just press the buttons when they light up, or if it's Simon Says, where it says a sequence and then you have to repeat it. But it's like one of those. That's it. It just shows the 4 face buttons of the Xbox controller. The cylindrical Frogger thing is something they added for the PC version like a year later, I think. And that's all new.
It's ridiculous. It's all Bethesda's fault, basically. I blame it on their fault.
All those fucking mini games where you have to
single-handedly.
tap at tumblers and try not to snap your fucking...
and the persuasion mini game.
And you're constantly like,
like-
why do I have a skill in this if I still have to play the mini game? Like, which is itself is a
And the
separate
mini game
skill
levels
check.
your skill up. So all you have to do is just fail at the mini game and succeed in sequence.
Why am I doing a real life skill check for a thing that I bought a skill for?
It's and then the minigame is so badly designed. So the for those who don't know what we're talking about, this is Oblivion, and basically when you talk to people, if you want them to like you better, you play a minigame at them. And the minigame, the way it's designed is
you click on the pie.
Yeah. So the pie always rotates in the same direction. There's some little details here and there, so I'm not going to go into all the details. I know exactly how it works because I have played the game multiple times. But basically, the pie always rotates in the clockwise direction. And some people will be more susceptible to bribes, for example, or I say bribes, but it's the 4 parts of the pie are charm, taunt, intimidate, and things like that. So it's basically 4 different things that you can do at people that you used to be able to do in Morrowind with different skill or with different actions, but now you do them in a minigame. And so different people will have different reactions to that. And you can see what they like. The difficulty comes in with the rotation of the pie. So you need to min-max sort of where the pie goes and
Yeah, you predict
hit
where it's
the
going to
high
go.
points.
Which means
Mhm.
that,
So-
first of all, the absurdity is that you have to do all of those things in every conversation. The implication
Exactly.
that you're just randomly like being funny and then intimidating and then charming and whatever, like in this and always
sequence.
you always have to do all four of them in some order before you can then reset and do them again. And that's just how you're interacting
Again,
with
yep.
them somehow as a person, which is like,
Yes.
what does that mean? But then of course there's also the fact that like when you play it, what you do is you just load up the thing and then you just like highlight all of the fucking things that you can do, because you don't even have to judge how effective each one is based on how they react to it. You preemptively just highlight the menu options and their face changes with each one somehow.
Exactly.
And so you can like,
Exactly.
so you can tell in advance. So yeah, you just line up. You line up. You just test you see what their facial reaction is to each one, and then you just calculate in your head what order to click on them to make the big wedges happen on the good faces and the small wedges to happen on the small faces. And it's like, it's a baffling, incomprehensible minigame that is both very strange to think about how they made it, but also like it's really hard to think about like what it's supposed to mean in universe and represent. And it's just, and once again you're like, but I have a skill in this, why am I playing a minigame?
And it's a mindless minigame as well. Like it's not like the first few times you're gonna need to like think of what you're doing, but once you get the grip, it's like it's just you know exactly what you're doing. It's just click 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 click. And so what ends up happening for somebody watching you play is that there's this, you're talking to this character and you're clicking on a wheel up there, and the character is making faces at you as they go through all the different stages. Because as you click click click, they're like smile frown frown smile frown smile. And it's like ridiculously looking, but this is by design as well, because how the game works is if you wait too long while you're playing the minigame, you start the minigame, right? You click on the button start to persuade or whatever, and as you're playing, their reaction is going down, it's ticking down, so it's a timed game as well, so you're incentivized to do it fast. So like it looks ridiculous because you're good at the game, at the minigame, but also the game wants you to be fast, so it always looks like it was designed from the ground up to be stupid. And I just cannot understand that minigame. And we're not, and the characters talk as well. It's not just the faces that they're making. They also say, "Oh, you're," so they cut each other off. They get themselves
You
off as
having
they
a laugh,
react.
mate?
Yeah, and it's always the last one that just they
And
get
they're
to say
also all
completely.
voiced by the same three people.
It's just absurd to no end, and Bethesda was just obsessed with minigames because Bethesda is just they're misguided about a lot of things, and that's one of the many misguided things that they do is the minigames. They look at what Morrowind did, where you just have a random chance at hitting a person, and they're like, no, you shouldn't have a random chance of hitting a person because that is not fun. And so what they do is they always hit, it just does different amounts of damage. But they also look at the minigames where you have a random chance of opening a lock, and they say, no, that's just a skill check. That's not fun. Let's make it a minigame. And that is even worse than the always hitting weapons somehow.
Morrowind was also bad in certain ways. Like, oh my
Jesus.
god,
All the takes.
Well, I mean, Morrowind's
ambitious. It's very-
persuasion
yeah.
stat.
Yeah, persuasion is broken. It's just not balanced at all.
There's no use case where persuasion is a playable mechanic in that game.
Exactly.
Like it's literally useless. Every time you click persuade, all you do is make people hate you all game.
Yes.
So the way to make people that stop happening is you get an auto clicker and you walk up to one guy and you just have it auto click persuade for like half an hour. And then you piss him off so much for so long that eventually you become a god of persuasion and you max out the skill, and then he goes back to liking you, and then everyone for the rest of the game will like you instead of hating you.
Mm-hmm. That is one way.
There is no period of time where it's like, oh man, what a gamble. Let's see if I can use persuade or something. It's like, it's literally useless until it's impossible to fail. Like, it's a complete waste of a mechanic. It makes no sense.
But like in Bethesda's defense, I think their intention wasn't that. They just like,
I assume
think
people generally
this
intend for a game to not be poopy butthole, but then the game happened the way it do, and then you're like, oh,
no,
that's bad.
I think what they intended was that you should find people to train you in persuasion because you have trainers for skills, and then once you get to be trained, you can talk to people and try to get them to like you better instead of having them pissed off when you try to admire them or whatever.
Someone persuading you to pay them money to train you in persuasion is
even paying money, even bribing
indication of someone being good at persuasion.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah, but even bribing people is a persuasion check. Yeah, but it's very useful though. It's a very useful skill, and I think I get where they were coming from, because the taunt mechanic is broken. Basically, you get to kill anybody for free, or when I say free, is I mean the guards don't come and arrest you.
Stop! You
So
violated the law. I did the meme. I said it. I said the thing. Everybody, reward me.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, basically the way it works is you go up to a person that you mean to kill, and instead of just attacking them, you taunt them. And if you are good at taunting them, they actually attack you instead. And in the laws of Morrowind, if you kill somebody
So
in
Morrowind's
self-defense,
a stand your ground state.
yeah,
I hate that joke.
Stop right there, criminal scum.
Oh, here we go. That's the voice. The voice that is half the game.
Wes Johnson.
The other one is that that one woman with like the slow
Linda
slow,
Carter,
dreamy voice. That's like, I'm not sure
it's
if
Linda
I'm
Carter, I
fully
think.
listening to what's happening right now. Stop! I need your
she's not
help.
very good.
My house is full of rats.
She's iconic, but she's not very good.
There's like two voice actors in that game. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, and so yeah, I think that's what happens with a persuasion in Morrowind. But also that's what happens with jumping in Morrowind. That's what happens with running in Morrowind. You just leave your character auto running, because the games have auto run buttons. You just press Q or whatever, and it just runs against the wall for the whole night, and then you wake up in the morning, you're level 100 in athletics or something. They didn't expect that, but I'm sure they knew that. They knew that was going to happen when they designed the game. But then they went and designed Oblivion, where you just cast restoration spells as you jump around the cliffs, because that's how you train restoration in athletics. It's like
you train most skills in those games by just using them repeatedly.
Yeah, that is a misguided. By the way, I'm sorry. I know that's Elder Scrolls, and that's how it is, and I know a lot of people love it, but that is a misguided design philosophy. It's also a reactionary. Oh, not in the political sense, but it's also reactionary.
Where we're going with this.
Just like the mini games, because it's looking at traditional role-playing mechanics where you get to spend points leveling up and being like, no, that's not realistic enough, and coming up with worse solutions. Because it is realist. It's realist to piss somebody off for half an hour with an auto clicker, or the mini game in Oblivion.
Being able to level your skill by downloading an auto clicker is always bad.
Yes,
that's bad implementation of whatever that skill is, because it means you were just asking people to do those clicks for real.
Mm-hmm. That's why I don't do that. I just use the command console to upgrade my skill and pretend that I did it with this Fade to black on the Let's Play. I left it running for the whole night. I didn't really.
Morrowind tried. I appreciated the part where they had me reading through a giant journal to figure out what the fuck's going on and what I forgot and so on. And then you try to then you're like writing down like what your bus route is to get to your commute to where you want to go. Because there's like the mage teleportation and the silk striders or whatever. And you're like, okay, these two things are two separate overlapping networks of like the metro basically. And I need to figure out the best way to get to fucking Thancred or whatever. I don't know any names.
They're the silt striders, Keith.
Wow.
Get it with the
because they're walking in silt
or whatever. And I don't think so. I think that's just a name.
No, like silt is
a term.
Yeah. No, it's a grain size classification.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it goes clay and then silt and then sand and then pebbles and then cobbles and then boulders.
Oh, that makes total sense.
So silt is finer than sand, but less fine than clay.
I always thought it was like
that's pretty much the entire setting of Morrowind. Well, until you get to the volcano shit.
The thing about Morrowind, though, and I still send Morrowind.
You get to be a really janky werewolf, so plus 2 points right there. Out of 10.
I stand by Morrowind being the best game Bethesda ever made, but also being one of the best games ever. Despite all its jank. And I think the testimony to that is that in comparison to another one of the best games ever, Fallout 1, you, Keith, had the intended experience with Morrowind, but you did not have the intended experience with Fallout 1. Or
They
at least
should have been. They should have intended better.
They should have, yeah. So Morrowind achieves a lot of its goals, I think, and even though it's ambitious and too ambitious in a lot of them, I think in a lot of regards it's just ahead of its time as well. I feel, and Bethesda just didn't grab a lot of the nice things that it had, just waypoints and fast traveling. Oblivion is a step back.
Oblivion was my starting point. I like the part where I played most of the campaign before I slept for the first time. So suddenly I gained 12 levels or 50 levels or some nonsense number. And then the entire landscape of enemies in the entire world suddenly swapped out to be completely different enemies. Because I skipped from level 1 to like level 20 or something because I didn't know that I needed to sleep.
And that's
it's weird. It's weird because your skills are getting stronger. So why do you need to level? What?
Yeah, that's the thing.
There's something else that leveling does that you like like stats or something. But like all of your skills just level up, period, and then they're higher. Like that's it. You don't like need to like sleep to gain access to level 53 conjuration. It just is that because you conjurationed a lot.
But the thing, there's two problems with Oblivion in that system, and I think we've talked about it before. But the leveling up of like it's as you say that the leveling up of your stats doesn't affect your character nearly as much. So what ends up happening is that if you focus too much, for example, in sword fighting, and by level 10 you're maxed out at your sword fighting, you're like fighting enemies at level 10 and just having a swell time. The more you level up, the hard
the game gets. Yeah, you get weaker.
Yeah,
because you maxed out your skill early on, and it will never get higher. So you're just going to be that level of sword fighter forever as the game gets harder and harder.
Yep.
I don't know. I've never. Bethesda's games have never really been very fun, despite the fact that their shallowness, especially more recently, is to make them fun. Like they're not fun because they're not satisfying to play and they're not mechanically interesting. So you just kind of mindlessly do one action for the entire game for combat, and it's like. One of the ways that I really got like punched in the nose by that as a kid was when I tried playing the arena storyline in Oblivion, and it was just mindlessly, instantly winning fights. Then I was like, okay, really I should turn up the difficulty slider, which was not even like, it wasn't even like easy, medium, hard. It was just a fucking slider of like infinite scaling of like, what am I even supposed to think this means? So I pump it up to being high, and it's like, oh, everyone's invincible now. Like they take like no damage, and also they have healing spells, so they just get healed every time they take any damage, and it's just a forever. But I'm still just whapping them with the sword forever because that's like what my character does, and I'm like, what? This isn't fun either. My choice was unfun but easy, or unfun but fucking tedious, like pulling staples, and I've done enough of that. That's my go-to reference for like a tedious activity is working at the upholstery shop pulling staples out of things.
One of the last things I did with Oblivion back when it came out was I had this whole plan. I had the game modded and all that, and I knew what I wanted, and I was going to finish the game. And I had this whole plan about how to level my character properly. At the time, I did not understand the problem with the leveling system, so it was a misguided attempt. But I got to level on maximum difficulty, so I had the slider cranked up to the maximum, and every mud crab took me 5 minutes to kill. And I'm not exaggerating. It's absolutely atrocious because the game is not intended to be played like that, but they allow you to. And I got to level 33. I recall this number distinctly because, of course, I did. It was like 100 hours of gameplay. I get to level 33 without leaving the capital island, which is the first little island where the capital city is in. And just by killing mud crab, because like every mud crab will level you up like 5 times already because you're just spending so long swinging your sword. And it took me out. I remember I think it took me like almost 100 hours.
Straight up making single player RPGs MMO tedious.
And I was min-maxing all my stats as well. I had them all.
No one.
I had them all in a spreadsheet and be like, okay, I leveled up my athletics 8 times, and I leveled up my acrobatics twice, so this allows me to get my strength up by 5. This level up, okay, that's good. Let's not level up any restoration because I don't need intelligence this level. because that's how the game incentivizes you to min max if you really pay attention to the leveling system. And that was the last thing I did with Morrowind. Oh, sorry, with Oblivion, when I reached the point of this is just dumb. I'm gonna play something else. And also that's when I really started understanding the problem with level scaling, and people were like, "This game is always the same because of level scaling," and I was like, "That is a problem, isn't it?"
It's always the same until it's much worse than all the same.
Yes,
Which just starts actively breaking itself in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
There was a funny example of that.
Attention.
Marty was telling me an example of that for World of Warcraft, where I guess I think it was for Battle for Azeroth, the leveling experience was fucked up in a way where every time you leveled up, you got weaker.
What?
Because what they're doing is they're playing through the entire leveling experience using raiding gear they got last expansion. And so every time they level up, their stats are staying the same because like their gear, they're not getting new gear because their gear is better than what they had. Their gear from before is better than anything they're finding.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is every time they level up, the amount of like say agility or whatever that you need in order to get like your versatility and your like let's do an easy stat like critical, like your crit score, like your critical stat. It takes more crit stat to get a percentage of crit chance the higher level you get, because it's trying to scale as it goes. Which means that your gear, which has the same stats the whole time, is resulting in you getting less crit every level, even though the number's staying the same. Your crit chance is dropping every level.
Mm-hmm.
So like while they're playing through the expansion, every single enemy got stronger as they leveled up because like they were just getting weaker with every level. It's just like a really bizarre quirk of that setup.
But also because they were using sort of gimped items.
Yeah, but they're specifically their gear, like nothing was dropping that's better than that. It's just the weird quirk of the fact that like their stats are worth less every level because that's how they scale it as you go.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weird relics and messes throughout that entire game these days. Like they keep doing stat crunches to make the game less incomprehensible with having them infinity large like bullshit numbers everywhere because there's so many expansions of power creep and everything. So they're like, reducing all numbers by like 50% again or something like that, just to try to make it squish. And then they try to make the entire game scale with you as you level through it, so you can play different zones in different order and try to make it have like more of the game have value to players because you level too fast and there's like 12 expansions of content and so on. So it's like, how do you parcel this? So it leads to really funny situations where you'll finish a quest and you'll get a choice between two pieces of gear and they both have the same stats.
Oh. Yeah, that's weird.
It's just a really funny outcome because they're like, it's just all the changes that they make collectively make the game less coherent as it goes. But also like, I don't even know how you fix that. At some point, it's just like, stop making the same game forever. Like this game's been out since 2004 or something, and trying to bolt more expansions onto it forever creates all these problems that almost no one's had to deal with before because they usually die by now.
It's just I don't understand MMOs as a replacement, or I don't understand how people find enjoyment in MMOs as a replacement for things like Overwatch or Counter-Strike, because a lot of people play them like that, and I just don't get it.
Just a daily time killer thing, you mean?
Yeah. Like, because if a game is fun and you play it because you have fun with it, then you don't need progression to keep playing. It's fun, right? But if the game has progression, then progression towards what? You need to have a goal, and if the goal is always changing, then you don't really have progression, do you? It's just like,
in a lot of ways you don't. Yeah, no, a lot of World of Warcraft is about like the illusion of progress, and the longer you play it, the more blatant that gets. Like originally I stopped raiding when I accomplished getting the Warblades of Azeroth off of Illidan, which is his big green dual war glaives that he always has and all the art and shit. my rogue had that. I'm like, here we go. I beat WoW, and then I just quit. I sold my account. I only got back into it more recently just to play with friends and so on. So it's kind of fun to play in a raiding guild. But like you have like it really is a game where you just rush to the end of the game, and then you either engage in PvP or you raid basically. And if you're raiding, then it's like basically it's just you and your group of friends meet up every week to try to progress through this dungeon more. And then then within 3 months or so, you probably finished it, and on whatever difficulties you were ever going to do. And then a new patch comes out, and here's the new raiding dungeon, and that happens like 3 times. And then after it's happened like 3 times, then you're hearing about the next expansion coming out in 6 months or whatever. That's just the loop that's continued for like 15 years now. And what's really blatant about it is how quickly all content is just obsolete. Like the moment that like if you're playing 9.0 and then 9.1 comes out, everything before doesn't matter. Like the 9.1 patch will add an entire new region to play in with its entire new quest structure and its new reputation to grind through, and its own rating tier, but also some kind of weird like casual player friendly like upgrade gear set thing and so on. And then 9.2 comes out and invalidates that entire region, and then now there's no reason to go to that region. And so like when I first joined their guild, I was playing around in so there was like in Battle for Azeroth there was like a Atlantis looking place, and I took the time to figure out how to get into this big upgrade system and understand how it worked and figure out what the system was about, just kind of respecting the game to have a reason for me to do the things that it's asking me to do. And then like the moment I set foot, like I quickly realized I capped out the entire system only to realize it was weaker than the stuff I'd already gotten from another zone that I guess came out afterwards. And like the entire game is just this endless roadmap of those kinds of zones where like most of the content is basically pointless, and even the newest content becomes pointless like 3 months after it comes out. And they've just been like I've used the metaphor or whatever already this episode, but it is like being a developer at Blizzard for that game is like just being somebody whose job it is to put the tracks out in front of the train while it's moving, and it just keeps going, and those tracks just matter while the train passes them. And that's just what WoW is. It's an endless content graveyard.
That's sad.
It kind of is, yeah.
Not from
like at least in Final Fantasy, it's like it's always like here's the big linear story that you're going to play through, and because it's built around caring about the story, there's also like all that there's reason to go back through all the content because you can unlock cosmetics, but also like learn what happened throughout the story and so on. And that's kind of not there in WoW. It's just, in fact, the story is mostly incoherent, and even if you want to learn all of it, everything that happened before Cataclysm doesn't exist now. Go play classic WoW, I guess.
Oops.
I don't know.
Content's so good we got rid of it.
Destiny did that too recently, which I'm just baffling.
Yep. I say sad because
paid DLC too.
If you think about all the games that so many people, the non-MMO games, that so many people devote so much time of their life to play, like in the future, people are going to be able to go back and see, oh, this is what people played back in 1998. But for WoW, it's not like that. They're going to be able to read about it. They're going to be able to see Let's Plays, maybe.
I'm Let's Plays.
Don't get MMOs.
Oh yeah, we're over time. Huh?
MMOs.
I got carried away drawing for a bit. It's time for us
What
to
are you
go to
drawing
bed. Not really go to bed.
This
It's
day?
time for us to continue the
day?
cycle to the next
I'm
part of
going
the
to
day and
bed.
the whatnots. Yeah, you're gonna go to bed because you're in. It's late for you, but for us, it's 4:30.
It's food time.
Yeah. On with our days. Good night, everybody. Send your questions to dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com, and we'll answer.
I dare you.
I'll ask them, and then we'll see if they get answered, or we'll just go somewhere else with it. Bye.
Probably somewhere else.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.